Happy Halloween, guys and gals. It's me, your old pal, Johnny Horror, here to introduce the latest episode of the Johnny Horror Podcast, in which I sit down with my pals, Kalen, Abbey, and Brian, to discuss M. Night Shyamalan's science fiction horror thriller, Signs. We have a lengthy discussion about the flick and have a lot of laughs along the way. This particular episode has been a long time coming, and we had a lot of fun making it, so I hope you have a lot of fun listening to it. Enjoy. Welcome back to a very special episode of the Johnny Horror Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts this evening, Johnny Horror, and tonight we are discussing M. Night Shyamalan's 2002 science fiction horror thriller, Signs. The film stars Mel Gibson, Joaquin Phoenix, Rory Culkin, and Abigail Breslin as a family on a farm that may or may not be dealing with aliens. And tonight, I am very, very fortunate to not just have one guest, to not just have two guests, but to have three guests and hosts with me this evening. So starting with the person directly below me on this Zoom meeting call thingamajig, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell me, do you believe in aliens?
What's up, everyone? Kalen Berriman, resident handsome movie expert. Yeah, I mean, I believe in aliens. I think it's only logical in a expansive and infinite 13 billion year old universe where we know life exists because we are alive. I think it makes sense that there is life in other places.
That is an excellent answer. And I look forward to the person who is in a pink glow and is the lone female on this podcast, a very brave individual who is making a return to the Johnny Horror Podcast for the first time in a very long time. Who is this person, and do you believe in aliens?
Hi, I'm Abby. 100% believe in aliens. Don't know if they're like the little green blob like guys that we see all the time, but definitely we're not the only things that exist in the universe, that's for sure.
Hell yeah. And last but not least, my co-host on the Johnny Jaws cast, and apparently, according to Kalen, is rocking a very epic mustache. Who are you with your dumb face, and do you believe in aliens?
Hey, Brian. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said it better than the other two. There's no way that they aren't out there. So, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, 100%. Our little nameplate things here.
Yep, right? They sure are, buddy. Oh, you just have awesome there.
Oh, wait, where's mine?
Yours says Scream Queen. Yeah. Hey, what do you know? You guys all came up with some really interesting stuff. I just am very
you.
And I want to point out that this is not staged. I have this up year round because I love the X-Files. So, like, obviously I do believe in aliens.
I didn't even notice that until right now. I've been so, like, mesmerized by your pink light. I love it. It's making me think
it goes
that,
to, like, blue and orange and all that stuff.
I love it.
It's making me think of this movie that's now up on streaming services that was making the rounds a while back. I saw the TV Glow. I haven't watched it.
I haven't seen it yet. Seen it yet.
That's my movie.
I don't want to pay like $25 to rent it, to be honest.
It's only like $6 now.
Oh, okay.
I am one of the characters in that movie. I love that
All
movie.
right, well, you hold that thought, Kalen, because I feel
will.
like I might yank that out of you here in a minute or two in one of our
Real quick,
categories.
are we in the same order you think we're like? Abby, you're right here, right? For everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
And then
You're up there.
I think so,
Kalen.
Yep.
Kalen's.
And I'm
Dumb.
Pop. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
Cool.
think
I'm just curious. Just making sure we're all. I'm gonna give high fives later. This is gonna be great.
I know I'm so thrown off with like I'm in like reverse.
Uh,
High five, Brian.
stop.
Got it.
Everyone,
Yeah.
you guys shouldn't have gotten this out of your system off mic. We have to do it on.
Hey, it's what the people are here for, bro.
I guess so. Yeah, no. I think specifically now with all the footage that the government dropped on us, that none of us really seem to make a big deal about, because we're like, yeah, that's fine. Aliens.
I was making a big deal.
Okay,
I
you
cared.
probably were.
Yeah.
The rest of us were very concerned about just all the shenanigans here on Earth. We're like, dude, we got enough shit to worry about. I think that's my general consensus on aliens. You know, is I'm like, well, if they show up, we'll deal with that when that happens. Otherwise, you know,
Too. Bring it on.
Deal with them the way we deal with every other problem.
Mhm.
Violence.
Violence and putting it off until it's too late. You know, climate change. What's that? All right, gang. Well, I'm gonna just ask you briefly about your first time watching Signs, if you can recollect. Abby, I'm just gonna try and be as gentlemanly about this as possible. Ladies, go first, please.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, definitely. I think I said I was like 13 or 14 when it came out. And it was like one of its time, you know, because it was like, I want to say this was kind of like the first movie that had, it's not necessarily found footage, but that scene where it's like, oh, we're just having a birthday party in Portugal, and then this thing shows up that gave like a real sense of like realism to it. So of course, me being like totally engaged, I'm like jumping and freaking out, and all my brothers are like, "You're such a wimp," but like I really enjoyed it. And I think when I first saw it, I did not pick up so much on some of the deeper storylines that I'm sure we'll go into. For me, it was just like, these aliens are freaky, and I never want to go in a cornfield.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yep.
Brian, why don't you tell me about the first time you watched Signs?
Yeah, I think I was like, when it came out, I was like, like 11 or 12. I was like in like 5th grade, which is not appropriate time to be watching that movie. On top of it, my parents owned it, so we had the VHS of Signs for whatever reason.
Oh, that's sick.
I kind of.
It just made you scared when you saw the box, didn't it?
It was just like, I was terrified, but like so fascinated by the movie after we initially watched it, and like see my parents be like creeped out by it. I was like, oh, this is actually a scary movie. But then we had the VHS, so like being like a dumb like 6th grader or whatever, I'd like play it back and like pause the scenes trying to like see the aliens, and it's like all staticky because it's VHS, so it's even worse. It just feeds into the movie itself. But it was very traumatizing. Great movie though. But yeah, same. Like I don't think I hit nearly as much of the deeper aspects of the movie. It was like, aliens are terrifying. Fuck cornfields forever.
Yep.
I don't want to live anywhere rural.
No.
Kalen, what about you, buddy? He's gonna come in with this. He's gonna come in. Sorry, he's gonna come in with this. All right. So what I was thinking when I saw this, and the themes that I took from this, fucking, how old were you when this came out? By the way,
22 years younger than I am now. I went to see this early on, like in the theatrical release, with my dad, and I loved it the first time I saw it, for sure. I would say the deeper themes did resonate with me because it being a movie that's so much about, it's a movie asking really big philosophical questions and offering really big feelings on really important things, but specifically being a movie about like sort of faith and whether or not you you see those signs. Not to jump ahead here, but whether or not you're one of those people that sees the signs or whether or not you're one of those people who doesn't. That affected me a lot because when I was a kid, I was definitely one of those people that saw signs everywhere and did not feel alone. And I resonated with that aspect of the movie very strongly. Yeah.
I honestly cannot pinpoint exactly remembering when I saw this movie. I do remember at the time, and still kind of to this day, in at least on the internet, that it was thought of as less than his two previous movies, and those being Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, and people really shitting on the so-called twist at the very end in regards to water, which I think I've discussed with each and every one of you at some point on the podcast. And I remember finishing the movie and almost having this guilty feeling that I liked it as much as I did, because the general consensus is that it was okay, but it was not The Sixth Sense and it wasn't Unbreakable. Which I think, unfortunately, is something that has followed Shyamalan for his entire career. And we'll get into that. Um, but before we do, we are going to jump on down to our very first category and discuss some other movies and interesting things happening in the world of horror and science fiction in a category titled the Johnny Horror News. So here at the Johnny Horror News, we just give updates on horror news, trailers, events, and more. And it's basically just an excuse to plug horror into the Johnny Horror podcast. Um, First and foremost, we are in the thick of spooky season right now. We are recording this in early October. It's going to drop probably mid to the end of October. Lots of fun, scary stuff to watch and enjoy. Have any of you watched anything of note lately that is not the film we are discussing that you would like to talk about? I guess I'll go first. Break the ice. I watched a movie on Shudder called VHS Beyond. It is part of the VHS film series. It is an anthology series told through the gimmick of found footage, and those found footage articles are VHS tapes. The first couple of these films came out, I don't know, it was probably like early 2010s. And
I was gonna say it's been a while.
yeah, I mean, they've been going strong. Like there was a little break, I think, in between like the third and whatever the one after that was. But I've watched the last couple that they've put out over the most recent couple of years, and they're really good. And this latest one, Beyond, is no exception. It's specifically, and this relates to the movie that we're discussing tonight, it's it's all about aliens and weird science fiction shit. So each segment is either alien related or has some weird science fiction aspect to it. Um, and I was not disappointed at all. Like, I think each segment, there are some that are certainly stronger than others, but I didn't think there was a dud in the bunch. There is a skydiving episode that is just bonkers and so much fun and scary and kind of funny all at the same time. And then there's this other segment where this gal comes across this alien ship, and the things that happen to her are really fucked up and weird. And then the wraparound story, the kind of like the beginning thing, and that kind of ties everything together. So between each segment, you go back to the main story, as it were. Um, the very ending of the wraparound story is some of the creepiest imagery regarding aliens that I've ever seen put on screen. So, in those terms, I think the movie was a very big success, and I very much had to watch cartoons when I was done watching the movie at like 1 o'clock in the morning because I was so freaked out by the ending of that film. So,
That's exciting.
yeah, definitely worth a watch. I think that if you like aliens and you are interested in science fiction horror, then it's definitely worth a watch. You can find it on Shudder. Kalen, have you watched anything that you want to discuss?
Yeah. Last night I watched Hellboy: The Crooked Man.
Oh, how was that?
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It came out yesterday. It's only available to purchase on Amazon. They're not giving a theatrical release. As of right now, it doesn't have a physical release. This is not Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy. It is not a big $200 million action adventure superhero movie. It is a low budget B horror movie. Southern fried, small town, Hicks and Hillbillies, eldritch horror. You know what I mean? It's a very different kind of movie. And it's really heavily based on the comic book storyline, The Crooked Man. So it kind of feels.
Oh, okay.
You guys know how, like, when you watch the first Star Wars movie, it does kind of feel like you're watching the fourth movie in a saga. Like, there's a lot of information you don't have.
Yeah.
It kind of feels that way. It feels like you're watching the seventh movie in a series. And I don't know why, but I kind of like that. I think that's kind of charming. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Micro budget B movie, scary, a much more comic accurate take on Hellboy. So I like that, and I would recommend, if you're interested in that sort of thing, checking that out. I saw the TV Glow.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it a lot. I thought it was a really cool movie. That is an indie movie. It's an art house film.
Yeah,
That's
what I've
not.
heard.
It's not a crowd pleaser. It's not something that everyone's going to want to watch. If you like sort of artistic takes on that kind of stuff, that might be for you. It's about a couple of kids who are obsessed with a TV show, and the TV show that they're obsessed with is an analog for Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Uh-huh.
So, like, I felt very much seen and heard. You know, this is very much written for me. But yeah, it was a cool movie if you're interested in that kind of artsy, neon-soaked kind of thing. And then the last one I can think of is I saw a film called Oddity.
Dude.
So good.
Dude.
Okay.
I actually watched
You guys
that
know.
because you watched it, Jonathan. You had it on your little poster thing.
All right, yeah, Abby, you take it away then. You talk about this. Tell us what you thought.
Oh,
about
sorry, I didn't mean to.
No.
No,
This is
I thought it.
handoff.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. Went into it not knowing the synopsis or anything, so obviously watching it, I was like, "Whoa!" Definitely creepy vibes that I liked. Storyline that I haven't seen yet. Definitely thought I knew in the first like 15 minutes who the killer was,
Yeah.
and then when it was revealed who it was, I was like, I would not have guessed that right away. So I thought that was super cool. And just that wooden figure dude was just creepy in
Yeah,
every aspect.
That movie I thought I enjoyed. I also went into it pretty much as blind as you can be, really. It reminded me. I feel like I watched. I have this very vivid memory of watching, like, I think it's like a Murder She Wrote sort of episode when I was younger. It's kind of like British television, British murder mystery. And I remember it just being very creepy the way that the episode played out. Um, and Oddity is a British film, and for all intents and purposes, it is a British murder mystery. There's no, great detective trying to solve the crime, but the way it plays out reminded me very much of, that sort of style of, it's almost less about who the killer is and really kind of what the motivation behind the murder is. And while I did pretty much suspect early on who the killer was, the way that the film plays out is very interesting and very intriguing and very creepy indeed. Abby, anything else that you watched recently that you want to discuss?
Actually, another really good one that I watched that had been on my list for a while. I think it's a Shudder original, but I believe I watched it on Hulu. It's called When Evil Lurks, and I feel like a lot of people, since it's subtitled, might not watch it right away. Yeah. But it was like a new take on like possession, zombie type stuff, and I just found that there were a lot of times that I was like, oh, whoa, did not expect that to happen. That was really cool. A little gore added in there. And just being in a different culture because it's a Spanish film, I thought it was super cool.
Yeah, that was one that I watched last year because of all the hype. And, I think it starts off very, very strong. I wasn't like the biggest fan of how it ended, but it's like a very messy film in like in a real like life way. Like the things that are happening are very grandiose, but the way people respond and the way things play out is very messy in real life that you just like, yeah, that's like, and the characters are not perfect. They are very flawed individuals, so naturally it's just easy to relate to them. So it makes those scenarios more frightening because you're like, yeah, I would probably do the same dumb shit or, be as scared as they are in these situations.
Yeah, I want to point out, I think the third act of that movie could have been stronger, but I think that movie's fucking awesome. Yeah. I'm 100% with you.
Like, I was very pleasantly surprised.
That is a dope, fresh movie. Yeah.
I
think of it as like an Argentinian take on the Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Very Evil Dead.
Agreed.
Yeah. I really did enjoy that film last year when I watched it. So that's a good pull there. Brian, our lone non-horror fan.
I haven't watched shit. I watched the most recent thing I think I've watched was like Kelsey and I watched Glass Onion, the Knives Out.
Oh yeah, that's fun. Yeah, that's a fun one.
Fun movie.
Yeah. Love it. You guys talking about suspects and like who done it? I'm like, oh. And then we watched Godzilla, or I watched Godzilla -1 the other day. That's cool.
The best movie of last year, as far as I'm concerned. So
I really liked it. Yeah, nothing like horror by any means. I mean, it is more horror than
so
the
it's
other
pretty scary.
Movies. Yeah, compared.
No, I mean Godzilla is a monster, and monster movies are like that's like. Particularly if you're like a kid and you're not really allowed to watch like full-blown horror, usually monster movies are your bread and butter. Jaws is a monster movie. Jurassic Park is a monster movie. So yeah, Godzilla is like
It was
He
a
is
wild ride.
the king of the monsters. That is his subtitle. So
It was
yeah,
cool.
he's the OG, man. And if you've ever watched the original, Gojira, that movie's fucking scary. He's a fucking scary ass puppet man in a suit creature with eyeballs that are just looking in all the directions all the time, and it's very unnerving.
Yeah, it was a good movie. Yeah.
Good. Those are all good shit. I'm happy everyone was able to bring something to the table there. All right, gang. Well, I just feel like I am not nearly drunk enough to talk about aliens, so we are gonna. You guys want to go to a bar? Let's go to a bar. Let's go get drunk. Let's go to a bar. All right, we're gonna go to a bar. Here at a bar, we are gonna swing by Johnny's Well, and at Johnny's Well, we discuss some of our favorite things, mainly alcohol. Each person in this video chat right now is or was a bartender at some point in time. So that's actually really exciting. I really don't know of too many other podcasts that would have this many people on at one point that can say that. So just this is not in the thing, but I have you all here, and I just want to round robin this shit really quick, just off the top of your head. Your favorite cocktail. Kalen, go.
Way too broad of a question. But
Just shoot from the head.
I mean, what the
Shoot from
fuck,
the head.
man? My favorite cocktail? That's like, what's your favorite movie? I don't fucking know. Yeah, fair enough. I'll say off the top of my head, penicillin.
Okay, cool. Abby.
Well, it's an easy question for me because you know what I always drink. My brother has coined it the TSL. It's a tequila soda lime.
Damn straight. Brian.
Right now, Negroni all day.
Oh, yeah. Classy.
Nothing better than a Jack and Coke, in my personal opinion. It is the epitome of cocktail greatness. So
I am
there we
so
are.
disappointed in all three of you.
Well, obviously yours was the fanciest.
He is an alcohol, just like, there's not even a word. He's too righteous for the rest of us. What is everybody drinking tonight, right now? What does everybody have in front of them? What are we sipping on? Yeah.
This is actually a tequila soda lime
Hey,
with
there
these
it
cute
is.
little like fangs
I love it.
that I stole from the restaurant. We put them on our bar drinks last year, and I took
They're
them.
adorable.
They're like little bloody fangs. I don't know if you can see them.
No, that's
Coors
rad.
Light, very nice, very nice.
Coors Light. Blueberry pomegranate soda water.
God bless you.
A nice penicillin.
I got a.
Oh, those
Cutwater
are good.
Dude,
lime
Cutwater.
margarita.
My buddy works at that bar.
No shit.
Yeah, the Cutwater tasting room in San Diego. I got a homie
Oh,
that works
that's
there.
sick.
Yeah.
Get the hookups. I want a lifetime supply of those.
Sponsor the Johnny Horror podcast.
I know, right? Yeah, Cutwater, sponsor us.
Yeah.
Give us free stuff.
All right, gang. So now that we've got all the fun stuff out of the way, it's time for the real deal. If you were going to host a watch party at your house and Signs was the main feature and you had to come up with a cocktail to pair with the film, what would that cocktail be? Brian, you look clueless. We'll start with you.
Dick. It's gonna be an Old Crow and Coke because I think it's corn mash whiskey.
Okay.
That's the first thing I thought of.
That's fair.
Hey, you know what? That works for me. I got no complaints about that. All right. Who wants to go next?
Yeah.
I wish I would have thought. No, go ahead.
Well, ladies first.
I'm still thinking.
So like, damn it.
It can't be
Oh,
corn.
okay, I got one.
Go.
Okay, so sticking in the theme, this kind of like reusing a drink I've made before, but sticking in the theme of like Alien, I would do like a melon margarita, obviously since tequila is my favorite libation. So it'd be like green, and then I would do like some sort of like charcoal salt, so it's like green with the black.
I like that. I like that quite a bit.
Dig it.
Hey, Kalen, just fucking lay it out, bro.
So
Amoxicillin.
I'm gonna do a simple one today, but I will explain it a little bit. So I'm just doing a John Collins, a
Yeah.
bourbon Collins with this one, and my reasoning is really simple. The movie takes place in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is the birthplace of American whiskey, and while Pennsylvania is better known for rye, I would say that bourbon is the strongest representative of American whiskey. The farmer's a corn farmer, so bourbon makes sense. And what do farmers drink? Lemonade.
Yeah.
So bourbon and lemonade would be the preferred beverages of choice of this family. So I'm going to go ahead and say John Collins, bourbon, lemon juice, simple syrup, soda water. Simple, refreshing, delicious. Yeah.
I love
Like
that.
Like
I love that. You guys are gonna absolutely hate me, but I just feel like I have the drink of choice, and it's very much in plain sight, and it's just too good. I can't pass it up. Water.
but
Water's
it
not a
has to be
cocktail.
it has to be in those like flower glasses that she uses like
I was actually okay. Can we just have a brief moment? When I was watching it this time, I was like I have a fair amount of people living in this house. It's myself, my wife, my brother-in-law, my son, and I just saw all the glassware just littered around the house. I'm like, who has that
much
many
glassware?
glasses?
right?
Like,
Do they just
Mel
never
Gibson
do?
at one point picks them all up and just like sees all the rest.
He sees
of
the
them
others and he just
puts
sets them back down. Yep.
Like, how do you guys drink? Like, what are you guys drinking out of? Coffee cups? What's going on?
Where is this coming from? Poor single dad. 80
All right.
cups.
I know that was a little bit of a cheat, so I would just go with like an apricot old fashioned, something that has a little bit still, because I just love old fashions. It's a good thing to sip on when you're watching a movie, and I like the apricot spin just because we are kind of out in the countryside and all of that. And this movie is just everything about it, like, the marketing and all that has that orange vibe, While this is not necessarily a Halloween movie, there's a lot of stuff surrounding the imagery, cornfields and whatnot, and again, the marketing material that just lends itself to autumn vibes.
Yeah,
And
a
I
lot
think
of sepia tone going on there.
yeah, and I do think apricot old fashioned is the autumn old fashioned. People have tried to do pumpkin spice. I've
I
tried
was
one of
gonna
those
say, please
before.
don't.
It does not. It does not go very well. I don't think so.
How are you accomplishing this apricot old fashioned, sir?
Yeah, it's just I'm a cheat and just use like an apricot syrup instead of a
Apricot bitter.
Ooh.
simple syrup, just because. So I have this guest, if I can just go on a bit of a tangent, who likes her old fashions a little bit sweeter. She chooses to do it with Crown Royal, which in our restaurant we make our old fashions with Maker's Mark. Crown, I think, is a little bit smoother in general, as it is a Canadian whiskey. Doesn't have quite the bite that Maker's Mark does. And she likes it with simple syrup, and she likes it New England style, which is like we muddle cherry, Luxardo cherry, and an orange wedge in there, and then I add a little bit of Luxardo syrup, and in with the whiskey and the bitters. I stir that in a mixing tin, and then I pour it into the glass with the ice and the muddled fruit. And it's very, very smooth. It's certainly sweet, but just how smooth it is really great. And I think that an apricot syrup, I'd probably dial up the portion a little bit from like a half ounce to probably like 3/4 of an ounce, so you could get that apricot flavor a little bit better. And then I'd garnish it with like a fucking apricot, like one of the little ones that you have in like a bag, the chewy ones, those fruit things. Anyways,
Yeah.
You guys really beat down my bottle of whiskey and Coke, but that's fine. It's all good.
You're a
Hey.
simple man. That's okay.
yeah, hey, that's one of the best things about you, buddy. Now, I tend to get a little bit peckish when I'm watching movies, love snacks, and we like to ask this question here on the Johnny Horror Podcast of the films that we are discussing, whether or not it is an eating movie. And really, we've kind of pretty much come to the general consensus that there's nothing in any Shyamalan movie that really is too disgusting that you can't, munch on some food. So is everyone in
The
agreement
throw
here?
up scene in The Sixth Sense, but just that one.
Yeah, that's fair. We haven't gotten to that part yet, so we haven't done Sixth Sense yet. One of these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, are we all in general agreement that Signs is an eating movie? You can eat with Signs.
Yeah.
Nothing too disgusting in it, right?
Oh.
Beautiful. Well, then we are on to our next section entitled Blah Blah Blah. You've seen it all before.
What?
So here in Blah Blah Blah, you've seen it all before, we discuss the plot of the film and the production, and yeah. So Kalen, as I tend to do on these eps, I'm gonna throw the plot off to you, and you can show Brian how it is done.
Why are you always trying to pit
And
me
I'm just
against
gonna
Brian,
sit
bro?
and listen.
Seems rude.
Signs is a movie about a single widowed father on a farm in rural Pennsylvania, raising 2 kids by himself in the aftermath of the death of his wife that cost him his faith in God, and has left him severely depressed. And he lives out there on a farm with his 2 children and his younger brother. When one day they discover crop circles and animals acting funny, and before they know it, they find themselves embroiled in a very spooktacular adventure involving unknown extraterrestrials.
Love it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. It's very nice and eloquent. All right, gang. So, if you've been keeping track of our coverage on M. Night Shyamalan films, you will probably, with the exception of how like fucking hard Kalen and I are for him, probably notice one thing, in that is his productions tend to go without much of a hitch. So there's not a lot to be said in regards to the making of his films. And judging by the very small paragraph here on Wikipedia, I'm going to say that Signs is no exception. But as I've said many times before, and I will continue to say, we do not get paid on the Johnny Horror Podcast. So the research is limited. So I got to give a shout out to everyone who contributed to the Wikipedia page and the IMDb page for Signs. So for the production of the film, Signs was filmed in 2001. All scenes shot on location were filmed in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. The scenes of the house and cornfield were shot inside the campus of Delaware Valley University an agricultural college where they had 40 acres of land to use. That's pretty cool. The scenes in the bookstore and the pizza shop were filmed in Newton, Pennsylvania, and the pharmacy scene was shot in Morrisville, Pennsylvania. M. Night Shyamalan was a fan of the film You Can Count on Me and cast Rory Culkin and Mark Ruffalo. Ruffalo required surgery for a tumor behind his ear and was unable to work on the film. So a week before filming, the role was recast with Joaquin Phoenix. Put a pin in that, ladies and gentlemen. The role of Graham was originally written to be an older man. Shyamalan approached Paul Newman for the role, but he declined due to lack of interest. He also approached Clint Eastwood, who declined due to scheduling conflicts. Put a pin in that as well. Shyamalan has said that the film's concept is a combination of two ideas: a family finding a crop circle on their property and an end of the world premise. Wow. That was invigorating. All right, Gabe, that is all I have for the production. Again, there's not, it just seems to be that the man knows what he wants. People like working with him, and his films tend to get made fairly easily. It doesn't seem to be a whole lot of drama, which sounds like it'd be fun to work on an M. Night Shyamalan film. The things I want to go back to here, first and foremost, I did not know that Mark Ruffalo was originally cast in the role of what's Joaquin Phoenix's character's name?
Uncle Merrill.
Merrill. What do you guys think? Pairing Mel Gibson and Mark Ruffalo together. What do you guys think about that?
That'd be great.
I don't think the chemistry would have been as good.
Yeah.
Especially,
I love Mark Ruffalo. I will say that I agree with you, Abigail, that one of my favorite things about this movie is the chemistry between Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Kalen, I would like you to elaborate because you chimed in with you thought it'd be great, so I want to hear about that.
I've never, like, Mark Ruffalo's never not been good in anything.
Not good, right? Yeah.
So I have no reason to assume, and also M. Night Shyamalan cast him.
Yes.
So he obviously agrees with me that it would have been a good idea. I think, Joaquin Phoenix is one of the true greats. Like, he's one of the titans of our era of actors. So obviously he was great in this role. I actually, not to pat myself on the back too hard, but watching this movie, I told everyone, like, that kid from Signs, like the younger guy from Signs, he's going to be a big deal. He's going to be a movie star. And so he definitely was. So I love him in that role, but if it were Ruffalo, I still think the movie would have been great. Yeah.
And what do we think of his original push to have it be an older man? He was looking at Paul Newman or Clint Eastwood, either which I think it's hard given the age of the children, I think.
Yeah,
Right.
that's my hang up. It's like, yes, he can still reproduce late in age, but it's like it would have been too off with the kids being that young.
Yeah.
And the kids made it too. So it's like their whole, like Abigail Breslin, the little one-liners that she comes in with, just being like this little girl completely clueless. Like, yeah.
Do we know? I was trying to rack my brain while I was watching it. Is this her film debut? Do you guys know that? I'm sure it's somewhere on.
It's her relevant role debut. I don't know if it's her film debut.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Okay.
It didn't say anything about like introducing Abigail Breslin. Usually
That's true.
Her
That's
first
true.
movie. Yeah.
But I mean, she did Little Miss Sunshine like what, 2 years?
Well, Miss
after
Sunshine was afterwards. She was older.
Yeah, it was like 2 years after this.
This was her film debut.
No shit.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, Shyamalan, way to go.
Little Miss Sunshine was 4 years later.
Oh, really? It was in 26 or
2006,
2006? Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wild. Cool. Yeah, I think honestly, out of those two older gentleman, the one that I would have liked to have seen very much. I'm a big fan. I mean, I fucking love Clint Eastwood, but I really do like Paul Newman. I think he's got a little bit out of those two guys. I think for the character of Graham, like Paul Newman would be the one that I would choose because I think he does have that manage to have that tough exterior whilst being able to emote a little bit more nuance and emotion in a way that Clint Eastwood perhaps doesn't have.
He's too macho.
Yeah.
He's too macho to play Graham.
Yeah. As we'll get to, the character of Graham really needs to go to some incredibly vulnerable places that I do not think Clint Eastwood would have been able to really get to in a believable way. All right. Well, without any further ado, let's go to what is arguably going to be the longest section of this podcast, the good stuff. So, here at The Good Stuff, we talk about what we liked about the movie. And I really feel like there's going to be no shortage of shit to discuss here. So, really, we're just going to kind of go through, and I imagine we're going to bounce off of each other quite a bit here. So, Brian, we will start with you, and we will see where we end up. Take her away, pal.
Wow, I get to start the good shit.
Don't make me regret this.
Ugh, you should. My top two, I'm just going to jump in with the top two. The first one being the score. Fucking awesome. And just watching the intro credits, I was like, Jesus Christ.
It comes in so hot, dude. It comes in so hot.
Yep.
Like, we're just like coming out of the gates. I'm like, I have it over here. I'm working over here. And I'm just like getting sucked into like intro credits the whole time. Had me like chewing my fingernails already. And then just like the overall tension of this movie. Like, I was telling Kelsey about it. She was like, no, of course I've never seen it before. And I'm like, well, for the first like 80% of the movie, you don't really see anything. They just like tease you along with this like pure terror of like this invading thing. Yeah. So those were definitely like, I mean, they're pretty overarching, but yeah.
Okay.
When it came out, you didn't even know that there was actually going to be aliens in the movie.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, except for the G being a crop circle, that kind of gives you a...
Well, you know there's crop circles, but you don't know that they're made by aliens. Early on, the movie is teasing the idea that they're probably
that it's the neighbors. Like, yeah.
There have been plenty of crop circles in the world and not a lot of aliens in the world. So that we know about.
That we know
of. So both those things that Brian mentioned, I kind of want to discuss. So I'm gonna hit kind of what I want to talk about really quick, and then I'll open it to the floor. My first note is that this movie it starts with the hook right out the gate. With a lot of movies, with most movies, you have your introduction of characters, you have, their everyday lives, blah, 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 and then you have your inciting, event. The thing that gets the character, we meet Luke Skywalker. He lives on a farm. He is unsatisfied with his life. Then he, gets these droids and meets Obi-Wan Kenobi, and his aunt and uncle are killed. That is the event that sends him on his journey to become a Jedi, basically, right? Signs is one of the very, very rare films that essentially starts with its inciting incident. Like, right out the gate, Graham wakes up, hears his kids screaming in the cornfields. Him and Meryl run out to the cornfields, and boom, there we are. Within the first 2 minutes of the actual film, we're off to the races. And I fucking love that. I love that. It wastes no time. As someone who does a little bit of writing from time to time, I'm terribly impatient. As a writer, I love getting to the good stuff. A lot of the times I will get to the good stuff and then do flashbacks afterwards and tell the story because I'm so excited about doing all the interesting stuff up front. And then it gives me momentum to do the legwork afterwards. And I love that this film hooks you in within the first 5 minutes of the movie. You know what you're in for. What do you guys think about that?
I agree. And honestly, like maybe this is diving a little too deep, but in the first 5 minutes, they kind of set up the dynamic of the relationships, having like the older brother with the younger brother, the older brother with the younger sister, because it's a little comedic in the sense that like Graham's brushing his teeth and you hear a scream, but then all of a sudden he like pokes his head around the doorway just
Yeah.
to make sure he heard that right. Then he gets a little panicked. Then Meryl wakes up by rolling off the bed and then realizes, oh shoot, gotta go do something. And it's, baby sister followed older brother into the cornfield because, that's her hero, that's her person. So although all four characters interacted, there were the closer relationships with the sibling relationship. So it kind of established that right away.
Yeah,
And
like
also
that
that
too.
Uncle Merrill was going to be like comedic relief throughout the whole thing.
Well, I mean, Kalen can probably jump in on this. He and I have discussed quite a bit how Shyamalan doesn't really get credit for how smart his comedy is. Like, he's really clever at making fun, like relatable comedy, I would say. The characters finding themselves in very interesting situations and reacting the way that I think a lot of us do, where like you like kind of talk to yourself and you're like, what the fuck, how did I get here sort of scenarios. I think that Shyamalan makes his characters very much that way. This kind of real life, like oddball sort of shit. And yeah, you get that with Graham poking his head around the corner. You get that with Meryl like immediately falling off the bed and shit like that, and just Meryl's like, I don't know, like bag of potato chips and beer cans in the background sort of shit. Like he's the thing that Kalen and I always constantly go back, and I'll hand this off to Kalen in just a second here, is the subtext that Shyamalan always manages to lay down in his films, and he's really good with that, I think.
100%. So something that Johnny and I have talked about, specifically when we were reviewing Unbreakable, and specifically when we were reviewing Split, is there's a certain density of storytelling, like a no wasted movement of storytelling that Shyamalan has, where within like 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the opening of a movie, you know who these characters are, you know what they're about, you know how they're feeling, you understand their backstory. He gives you that in these movies. He gives you that faster and more effectively than like anyone I can think of does consistently in Hollywood, like ever. Like I can't think of anyone who has such an efficiency of storytelling. Like you said, like when this movie opens, like we are immediately thrust into the inciting incident, like what's going on. There's an adventure here. Right away, we know, okay, this is the dad. We know that's his little brother. We know their relationship. We know the little sister and their older brother's relationship, and we know where they are, and that's all conveyed in like 5 minutes. He does that with such a deft hand. It's very rare, and it's extremely impressive. And if you've ever tried to write anything, it's super hard. And Johnny, like you said, he writes the characters in a very relatable way. They're quirky in the way that people are actually quirky. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Including the relationships to each other, and their own like mannerisms and behaviors. Yeah.
One of the things that I very much thought about on this watch, and I've thought about it quite a bit. I remember very much being in Brian's shoes on one of the watches with Celeste. Um, without giving too much away, this is a movie that like it's not fucking given away. This is like one of my favorite movies of all time. Who gives a shit? My wife and I, this is like one of our background watches, like so many times. And I honestly, I could not tell you if I saw it prior to my relationship with my wife. I just don't know. I've seen this movie so many times. It's been in my life for so long, but I do remember that the first handful of times watching it, that um those credits would start, and it would just immediately, I'm just like, whoa, we're in it. And it's almost scary, like the way it kind of lights up, and you just hear those strings on the violin, and it kind of starts slow, and then the title drops, and then we're going. But one of the things that I thought about on this watch was just really how good that score is. And again, it is James Newton Howard, I believe, who did Unbreakable for sure. Kalen, do you know off the top of your head if he did Signs? I'm assuming, or excuse me, Sixth Sense. I'm assuming he did.
I don't know off the top. I can check.
Okay. But I really do enjoy this score quite a bit. I think it just um particularly in the finale of the film, when Graham is having his premonition, um and his flashback and everything. The music cues there are just spectacular. um Abby, how do you feel about the music in this film?
Actually, I love that, as the introductory credits are going, it is a very like exciting, drawn out piece of music. And then as you're watching the film, when we're just getting those little smidges of like alien, like a foot here, or like dash past the birthday party, it's a very quick like violin string, but
Mhm.
that's it. And that like adds even more to the like, oh whoa, like, doesn't have to have this big old long drawn on, and then the peak is when you see the alien. It's kind of like those strings come in right when it's like something just pops out at you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really play
Kalen.
that hard shrill.
Yes, it's like shrill and it's short and it's like straight to the point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like Meryl in the closet every time the fucking strings go off.
Oh!
Oh my god, I love that.
Kalen.
It was James Newton Howard.
Okay.
And your thoughts on the score?
I mean, great score, strong score. Like everything that James Newton Howard has done and has done for M. Night Shyamalan specifically.
Why don't you hit me with some good stuff while you're at it?
All right, let's see. So the way I do my notes, guys, is just I will literally just give myself lines and moments in the movie that will remind me of things that I want to sort of talk about or bounce off of you. And immediately here I have a couple examples of that beautiful Shyamalan humor from this movie. So the first one I have is when the cop first shows up at their house to take the report. She talks about an old lady being upset that kids with skateboards, so she went and started spitting on the skateboards, and she says she must have had a cold or something because I won't eat for a week. I've been watching this movie for over 20 years, and that joke still makes me laugh every time.
Yeah. That's just another great example of like world building, because with the exception of the, really the day in town, this is a really a one location film. Like, he does go to Ray Reddy's place very briefly, but I mean, even that landscape is damn near the same as the farm. So it's a little way to kind of show, it's like that, and what was it, Lionel Pritchard and the Wolfington Brothers, those sort of like things to give this world a little bit of depth, this town a little bit of depth beyond the cornfields. And it is a great way to do that whilst being funny and relatable, because we've all seen something in regards to, spit or slime or grossness. That might be the one thing. That might be the one thing when you're eating, you have like a bowl of clam chowder and you're like, you know what? I don't want to eat this anymore. But I'm sorry, please continue.
Well, another couple of examples, just the similar style of humor. There's a scene when they go into town where Meryl is ambushed by a former member of his church who works at the pharmacy, and she asks him if she can confess.
Oh, Graham.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Graham. Big brother Graham. She asks if she can confess her sins to him because she needs to get off her mind because she's so scared. And we cut later to her like confessing her sins, and she's talking about how many curses she's used, and she said 23 curses, and she says mostly shits and goddams. And then she says, is douchebag a curse? And he says it would depend on the context with which you use it. And she says, I'm sorry, I have it right here. She says, John, you're a douchebag for kissing Becky. And he goes, that's a curse. And she goes, oh, okay, in that case, it's 78. And we cut back to him with his family, and he's like, I don't want any of you spending time with whatever her name was. I don't want alone. Beautiful joke. Yeah.
I have something in regards to, because Kalen, I told both Brian and Abby this off mic that like I've seen this movie so many times that I knew there was just going to be such a back and forth between us all that like I didn't really bother writing down like the stuff that is the good stuff. I very much just like wrote down lines of dialogue and stuff like that really stuck out to me on this watch. So in regards to their adventure to town, and I thought you were gonna pull it here when you said Meryl there for a second, but Meryl's trip to the enlistment office, and I have some more thoughts in regards to the sergeant that he interacts with.
Yeah.
But I love the line like, why aren't you getting your toes licked by beautiful women every fucking time, dude?
And the delivery is perfect. He's like, why aren't you in the Matrix?
He's like serious.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah. Dead serious.
Your toes licked by
Like
beautiful
hello,
women.
beautiful women should be licking your toes.
Abby, as a beautiful woman, how do you feel about licking toes?
You gotta show
What if the guy's good at baseball?
Oh, hold on. We're talking about a minor league home run champion here.
Do you have a minor league home run title there, Brian? I don't.
Oh man.
Strikeouts for sure.
Oh fuck. Jesus. Abby, the floor is yours. Why don't you tell us something that you liked about Signs?
I mean, I don't know.
She's like, I don't know.
Well, there's
I
a lot.
regret
I mean,
this.
the fact that there's like, a really heavy underlying storyline of this guy tragically losing his wife, and then basically just becoming the most cynical person on the planet at the time. Just kind of. Even his kids play into it. Like they're reading through the book of Aliens, and even his son is like, Dad, you're not being serious. Like I can tell you're kind of like, So to the juxtaposition of that with the humor that's in there, and then the what is really going on type thing that we don't really know. A funny part for me is when they think it's the neighbor boys that are outside. So they're standing in front of the open doorway, and he's like, Meryl's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to run around in opposite directions. We're going to yell we'll explain crazy. We're going to yell explain crazy. He's just like, doesn't get it. He's like, we're going to cuss. He's like, I don't cuss. And he's like, okay, we're going to act crazy. Tell me how to do that. So they run opposite directions, and I think he's saying,
I
What
am
did he say?
insane with anger.
Oh, I'm insane with anger. I'm going crazy. And then he finally says, like, time for an ass whooping. And then they meet up and he goes, I cussed. Just like so I cussed. He's like, yeah, I know. Like that was just like so good.
Yeah. That is one of my favorite bits in, I would say, in all of cinema. I love that scene to my very core. I will just randomly at points in my day, in my everyday life, just say I am insane with anger.
I'm insane with anger. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think probably towards the back end of this segment, we'll probably touch on really what the overarching theme is. I think that'll be a good place to really kind of, discuss. And a good end for the good stuff is to discuss the overarching theme and Graham's arc in the film.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, there's this is a very well balanced movie in a way that I really feel like, again, same thing that Kalen and I say in most of our episodes so far in regards to Shyamalan, that he just doesn't get enough credit for.
Yeah.
This one of the major victories of this film is that it is so relatable in so many ways. At any point in all of our lives, we've all lost faith in something, whether it be God, whether it be ourselves, whether it be humanity. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we stop being who we are and we stop having funny moments. It's just that we are kind of lost, And I think Shyamalan really is a master of just being able to write people, write everyday people. Brian, why don't you come in with another good for us?
Ooh. If I had to really narrow it down, there was another one that was like more like pigeonholed, where I just loved the helicopter shots of like the shaky footage of the crop circles. And then they do one really good one when they're heading into town that stops as their car keeps going, and it's all the like streets and intersections and buildings.
Yeah.
It has like its own kind of crop circle vibe to it. And I was like,
Yeah.
ooh,
Interesting. Ooh.
really cool blend of the two. And I was like
Yeah.
hoping to keep doing them, but I was like also really like there was only the one shot of the town. But I do love the like shaky helicopter footage. But yeah, that was another extra one.
I like that. No, there's, I mean, in the beginning of the film, there's a great, sort of like, it feels very news camera-y, like right when Graham takes a step, he's still in his PJs, he's got his boots on, and he takes a step forward, and we see all the bent over crops, and it pulls out, and you see it a little bit more, and it does the helicopter shot of, the whole landscape, and you can see all the crops, torn down, and it's this great, helicopter shot. It does slightly, for me, if I was to nitpick, it does like make me like pull me out just a little bit, because I'm like, oh, this shot doesn't necessarily blend with the rest of the movie, because it has that sort of news quality feel to it, but it is also just a very sort of like epic scope of the situation that our characters are dealing with, Kalen, you want to come in with another one for us, bud?
Yeah, so the way this movie kind of is, it's a mystery, and it's kind of unraveling. Like we're peeling the layers off of this mystery as we go along. And I think we do it so well because it doesn't feel like the Pandora's box opens too early at all, but it goes at such a brisk pace. Like you're moving so fast, we get to the scene where they're all crawling on top of the car, holding hands, trying to.
I love that one.
You know what I mean? It's such a great. I mean, that is. I'm with you. That is such a beautiful classic moment, like cinematic moment. And we get to that so early in the movie. Like, it's not like it takes so long to get there. And as we're rolling along and piecing this together, it's it's just done so meticulously and so with so much care. There's so many little like bits and jokes sprinkled in. There's like Mel Gibson telling the family everyone needs to calm down and eat some fruit or something. Or
that one, oh my god, the fruit statement.
I have that line written down.
Or him telling his dog, like, Isabel, you're going to feel very silly when all this turns out to be a hoax. Or sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. Getting hit in the head too much. But yeah, as we roll along, the way that the story continues to unfold at this rapid pace, we get just a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more before the big reveal. I think it's really masterful. I mean, you did already mention the tension in the movie, but I think that the way that the tension reveals the story is really special in this movie.
I agree. It's a very well-paced film. Particularly when, like, if you take into account, like, other alien movies, like, one that comes to mind that's really, a really great film, that also kind of deals with, like, is it real or is it not? Have any of you ever seen Fire in the Sky?
Writing it down right now, though.
None of you have? Okay. Arguably one of the scariest alien abduction movies ever made. Very much watch it. But I would say 3/4 of the film deals with, is this true? Is this not true? Because it's based on a true story of a man that was supposedly abducted, disappeared for a couple of days, and then reappeared. And again, I very much recommend that film, but the way that this film is structured, again, it gives you, I think probably the best way to describe it is that Signs gives you little hits of dopamine, like, in great ways, because it is a mystery. And again, it starts you off with the crop circles, boom, there's one. And then, then the dog starts acting funny 5 minutes later. Boom, there's another. And then, Graham's in the crops and he sees the foot. Bam, there's another. Meryl's in the closet. He sees the alien footage. Bam, there's another. There are these little bursts of just enough to go, all right. Because for all intents and purposes, I would say Signs is kind of it's not a slow burn in the way something like There Will Be Blood is, but it is a slower burn of a science fiction alien movie, And I think that very much works in its favor because, again, by the time we get to the kind of balls to the walls finale of the film, like, I feel like at that stage in the game, it's earned. Abby, what else do you have as far as goods?
Well, I'm just gonna fangirl on Abigail for a little bit because she's so cute. But even like, just
that
like
has nothing to do with the name at all, right?
No. But even like when it's like kind of a jump scare when he wakes up all of a sudden, she's in front of his face, and she just really matter of fact goes, "There's a monster outside of my window. Can I have a glass of water?"
Yeah.
Just like, what? And then, I mean, just me and my family, whenever we would like have food that we didn't really like, we'd be like, "It's contaminated." Like, we would always say that. Like, that's something we quoted forever. So like, she was very iconic in that. And I mean, the asthma attack scene, I mean, there's a lot to pick apart in that, but that whole just like talking about tension and, he's really coming to the like Jesus moment of he's saying like, "I hate you," but then at the same, like, that scene just, I'm like blown away. and the fact that half of it is showing the characters and him struggling to breathe, but then the other half is just looking at Abigail or Bo and Uncle Merrill, and they're just like trying to emulate the breathing, and like you just hear it in the background and you're just watching their reactions. Like,
Yeah,
I thought that was just spectacular.
I agree.
Our house creaks and it fucking sounds like something's on the roof. Somehow.
Oh my god! Speaking of, when the aliens come in, Meryl's like, they're on the roof, they're in the house. It's like, yes,
Yeah.
Captain Obvious, we
It's
know.
all in the
Like,
background too, that he's just announcing it.
and it's like, we get it, dude. And Graham's trying to have this like really nice moment with his son, like, oh, when you were born, this
Well,
happened.
hold that thought for
Yeah.
the shit later.
Sorry.
I had that kind of gut reaction this time I watched it too. No, like, you know what got me this time that I just forgot about was the there's a monster in my room, can I have a glass of water? And Graham walks her to her bedroom and he's talking to her, and I completely forgot that he sees an alien outside the window. And that was a moment of just like,
Oh yeah.
And that's again like a movie that I've seen dozens of times. The power, like I think of the TV set reflection. I think of the foot in the thing. I think of the hand out the thing. But I had completely forgotten about that. And that to me is probably arguably the scariest shot of the movie, because for me, like, shit that scares me is peripheral horror. It's the horror that's in the background. It's someone standing far away that you just happen to glance at and shit like that. And I think that shit's horrifying. So when I just really was not expecting that, half taking notes on my phone and shit like that and watching the scene was completely caught off guard by that. Brian, do you have any more good stuff you want to throw down on the table for us? You're like, no, that was it.
Yeah, I know we're hitting all the good stuff, but anything else would just be such like an overarching thing.
Yes, yeah, and we're gonna get there.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I know we're gonna dive deep on all these ones too.
Kalen, what about you? Anything big that you just want to kind of? I'm like opening the floor now because I have like 2 or 3 big things that like I think we can jump on, and we're probably all gonna kind of be in the same ballpark. But anything you have there that you want to open up on, go for it.
Well, I think that it can't be understated the importance of the power of casting. You can have
Gibson,
a brilliant
right?
script, huh?
I said Mel Gibson, right?
Yeah, you can have a brilliant script and you can have a brilliant filmmaker, and if you don't have the right cast, they won't deliver. And this movie required 4 people to really hit their marks. And in the adults, you needed real heavyweights who had gravitas and charisma and acting chops, and they got those. And the character Meryl needed to be sort of vulnerable and goofy while also having this sort of young buck upstart type of mentality. And the character Graham needed to be wise and relatable, and they really nailed those castings. But like Abigail Breslin was if you had cast Abigail Breslin 6 months too early or 6 months too late, she wouldn't have been the same character in this movie. Yeah. They hit her at like right the perfect time where she's still kind of a baby, but just old enough to give you what you need on, from a camera perspective. Rory Culkin is so good in this movie.
Yeah.
Like he just fucking kills it in this movie. He's so strong in this movie. And I don't think this movie would have been nearly as good as it turned out to be, despite the fact that I think it has a nearly flawless script. And I think that Shyamalan was absolutely at the top of his game. If you didn't have 4 people that were all right where they needed to be with regards to their performances in this movie.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of just dive into it now, guys, because I think we've all kind of like beat around the bush as far as
Danced around
all
it.
the good stuff. Like I think that Joaquin Phoenix, like with maybe the exception, I mean, like he's so good. He's so good in everything that he does. He'll always be fucking Commodus in Gladiator to me. That's the first thing I ever saw him in. Um, so he'll always be that slimy piece of fucking shit, spoiled, son. Um, I think Signs was the second thing I ever saw him in. So it was a very, very harsh turn for me. This is probably neck and neck with Gladiators, like far as my favorite performance from him. Like he is so fucking good in this movie. I just like every time he's on screen, I'm smiling in some way, shape, or form. I love how God, he's so relatable. He's so relatable as somebody that could have could have been could have been somebody good had he just applied himself a little bit more, but he just went for the easy route. And now he works at a gas station.
Yeah, he has that he's got that soft dumb to him.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, I have a line here, like I have a line here which is from what I would consider to be the quintessential scene of the movie, which is Graham and Meryl on the couch. I think that is the scene of the movie, with some of the best written dialogue ever put to screen, as far as I'm concerned, particularly in the early aughts. Um, and this is just him being dumb, and it fucking cracks me up when he's talking about how he almost went in to kiss the girl and then she threw up, and how he would have been kissing her had he not taken out the gum out of his mouth. He would have been kissing her when she threw up, and he said, "That would have scarred me for life. I may have never recovered." um, and that is just the like I don't know how to say it other than kind of like the weak stomach that he is, that would have been the most horrible thing that had happened to this man in his life, that he has led kind of like the a fairly easygoing life. And some about this performance from Joaquin Phoenix that is like why I love it so much is that I never doubt that he is this person. Never do I watch Meryl and think he's Joaquin Phoenix. He is Meryl, you know? He is that person. And I love that. What do the rest of you kind of think about Joaquin Phoenix in this movie? Besides, oh, he's good. Like, give me a little bit more.
I mean, just that pivotal scene that you were talking about, how, he's asking Graham for some comfort because Graham's being very cynical. And then he goes into this, those two groups of people. And it's this very deep kind of, splitting beliefs and stuff like that. And then for his reaction to be like, well, I'm in I think it's group 1 that they think miracles exist. And so his miracle was that he had gum in his mouth and didn't, end up with throw up in his mouth. And it's just, again, how he plays that character so well of the comedic relief. But then also you get further in the movie and he's like, he moves the TV into the closet because he doesn't want the kids to obsess about it. But then he's there obsessing about it. Like, they've been watching it since 5 a.m. Like, I had to get him out of here. But then he's like, this, and this. And it's just like, dude, little self-reflection. He ticked all the boxes. He was, even though he portrays a somewhat simple character, he's really good at still giving depth to the character
Yeah.
while still remaining true to who the character is.
Agreed.
Especially for like a young Joaquin Phoenix, like he nails the like for that role. I feel like he hit it really well. Of just like, especially with Mel Gibson, like the pairing
I
alone.
know he's acting besides this like legend. Yeah,
and I don't want to like shit on Mark Ruffalo because I like him a lot, but I'm just like, oh man, but it's hard when you already, of course, watch the movie and you're like, well, fucking Joaquin Phoenix killed it, and that pairing is just iconic now.
Yeah.
Especially at their age group and the way they cast them, and like him being the younger brother who's like this little buck who's just like trying to fucking figure his shit out, but also, yeah, it works well, and he plays it very well, like as that like softer but with like a little edge to him kind of Joaquin Phoenix person.
Yep.
Kalen?
I mean, Brian, I think you nailed it when you said he's a buck. That's what this character is. He's a buck, right? He's young, he's handsome, he's athletic. He hasn't had too much bad luck. You know what I mean? Life hasn't humbled him yet. And he's also not super thoughtful. He's not a super smart person. So he's a very specific sort of character. And it's true, Johnny, what you said. You don't see Joaquin Phoenix, you see that character. And that's what great actors do. Like that's what great acting is, Great acting is elevating the material and making the audience believe it. And it's the epitome of that. It reminds me, if I could compare it to something that's very different, it reminds me a little bit of Matthew McConaughey in True Detective.
Oh,
yeah,
so
where
good.
you just believe that like Rust Cole is a real person.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You believe that Meryl is a real person, and that's the highest praise I think you can give an actor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like Joaquin Phoenix is one of those quintessential people where it's like, if there's a villain in something, you hate them because they're so good at their job.
Absolutely.
Joaquin Phoenix can be that person.
Yep.
Basically, in most of his roles, like he can make you believe. Like Matthew McConaughey is like, that's right. Yep, that's him. That's that personality embodied in that person.
Well, again, without going on too much of a tangent, to just kind of lend itself to more of that. I mean, again, when I watch Joaquin Phoenix in Joker, I don't see Joaquin Phoenix. I see Arthur Fleck. So yes, like he is, for somebody with very, very distinguishing like physical traits, like he does, without being somebody like a Daniel Day, or seemingly to be without somebody like a Daniel Day-Lewis, Heath Ledger, gotta like fucking lock myself in a, hotel room for a month, or, not break character on set at any point in time. Like he manages to do it without going like insanely method, which might be even more admirable quality, He does have a line that I would say is very like resonates with me personally, which is when he looks at Mel Gibson towards the end of the movie, after the asthma attack scene, and says that, like, there's some things I can take and there's some things I can't, and one of the things I can't is my big brother who's everything I want to be, losing faith. And I don't want to see that again. Which I think is a very well written line, a very well acted line, and very much leads us to the star of this show, in probably, in my personal opinion, is like my personal opinion, his third best performance of all time, and that's Mel Gibson. I don't think it really can be understated how great and perfect his performance is, and as great as somebody like Paul Newman or Clint Eastwood is, that Mel Gibson is so fucking good in this movie and arguably, like, controversy aside, still probably like the last great role he performed. Um, and I want to hear you guys' thoughts on this. Kalen, I'm gonna let you take it away because you're gonna give us good send off here.
Um, well, the thing about Mel Gibson in this role is that what this movie is about is ultimately what Mel Gibson's character is going through. The whole movie begins and ends with what he is experiencing, because this is about a man whose wife was tragically and brutally killed, and this guy was the preacher in his town. He was the Reverend Graham, right? And he lost his faith. He lost his faith in God, and he lost his faith in, on a deeper layer than that, he lost his faith in sort of meaning, right? Like, he clearly doesn't see anything the way that he did before. And you sort of get the sense that he's only keeping his shit together for his kids. And Mel Gibson was tasked with giving us that character, a person who is suffering deeply and who is profoundly changed by a tragic event. And Mel Gibson has always been capable of this, but I don't think there's any role where he does it better. He's capable of such vulnerability in a way that just very few people are. Like, we mentioned Clint Eastwood. Like, Clint Eastwood couldn't be this vulnerable. He's just not like that. He's way too concerned about how tough and cool he looks. You know what I mean? So I think it would have been very difficult to find anyone who could have done this better than he did, to be totally blunt. And I think that as a film about faith and loss, I think it's interesting for me how this movie has kind of evolved over time. Because when I first watched this movie, I was Meryl. And as I watch this movie today, I am Graham. So
Yeah.
I think that was very I think that's very impressive storytelling. And I think it's interesting the way that it has aged for me personally, watching the movie and getting a really different thing out of it.
Yeah, I agree. There are a number of scenes in this film where I think he's giving some of the best acting he's ever given. I would say, just to give a little bit of context, like, the first like R-rated movie I ever saw was The Patriot. That very well may have been like the first like proper Mel Gibson movie I ever watched. And I think it's probably my favorite Mel Gibson performance, because he probably goes through more emotional trauma in that movie, more ebbs and flows in that movie than even something like Braveheart. Spoiler alert: in Patriot, Mel Gibson loses not one but two of his sons, which is, as a parent, is something that is just unfathomable. But in this film, he, I mean, I'm, as a person who was like raised in the church, coming to terms with the loss of faith is, kind of something that I have to do on a daily basis. Not because like I feel like I've like missed out on something. Like, I it's not that, but it's that people who do believe in that sort of stuff, they have a hope and a comfort that I will never have, in regards of like what their purpose and what their, you know, afterlife may entail. So I find Graham to be incredibly relatable. Um, and yeah, this is just really, there's so many layers to this performance. Um, it's not just sorrow and anger, but it is also, humility and comedy and, parenting. Um, Abby, what do you think? What are some of your favorite bits of Mel Gibson's performance in this movie?
I mean, again, that's like asking, what's your favorite movie overall? Because there's just too many. Like he just, I mean, it's just like the smallest things. Like, so when they get home and the walkie-talkie is starting to make some noises, and so um, Morgan climbs back up on top of the car, and then you see Bo like trying to go up. He's like, "No, don't go up there." But then he realizes like, okay, she's not going to listen to me, so he like helps her up. So it's still this
Love
like,
that.
it's like little things that it's like, he's very cynical and very, I don't want to say brooding, but just kind of like lost his faith. And so, is dealing with that. And then just in ways that he tries to control his kids, like no TV, no radio, like I would go crazy. Like, and he's trying to do it for the good of them. But then when he realizes, like, okay, maybe this is not so good for them, he's like, grasping this whole, like, pretty much being the sole parent now because he had a partner to help with that before. So I think he's still learning in that sense.
Mhm.
And you can see this kind of just like battle in his head of like losing his wife and, taking on her role and still trying to love his kids, but not necessarily sure how, and just like that whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, it has only been 6 months since his wife has
Yeah,
died.
it's very fresh. Yeah.
Um, and I mean, you see also like beyond all these, him beyond the trauma that he deals with, you actually see like multiple times, and this goes back to the vulnerability aspect, and multiple times of like legitimate fear from him. Obviously in the cornfields at nighttime, but there's also that really great bit where he kind of like throws it to the family of like, yo, we can either stay here or we can go to the lake.
Uh-huh.
And when it's tied 2-2 about where they're gonna go, he says my vote counts as two. And that is a he says it because I'm accounting for two parents, like that's so relatable to me. That is a fear of like, I don't want to be here. And it goes even beyond that. It goes even beyond that. It goes to the point in when they're in the basement and it's, the morning after the attack on the house, and Meryl looks at him and he says, "You didn't think we'd make it through the night, did you?" And he shakes his head and he says, "No." And that bit about him wanting to get away from the house to go to a lake, maybe it's not necessarily that they would be safer there, but it's like that his family wouldn't be killed in their house. They wouldn't be murdered in a place where they made a home. They wouldn't be attacked, and the last thing that he wouldn't have going through his fucking brain before he died was his kids screaming in the place where they grew up and they lived, laughed, and loved and all that shit. It could be a foreign place where there's not those memories, and it could be like distant away from all the happy times. And I say that as somebody who has these sorts of fucking thoughts about X, Y, and Z. So like that shit is like incredibly like relatable. So like those fears and things that he has, and the way that like Mel Gibson, like I mean Shyamalan's doing really, really great writing, like Kalen said, but it does take, like also that Kalen said, a really incredible actor to be able to bring more out of that. And Mel Gibson, I think, is doing that in these scenes and these performances. Brian, for you, like what do you do when you walk in as Mel Gibson and you see like both your children and your brother wearing like fucking tinfoil
So
hats?
cute. Tinfoil hats. Yes.
God, that seems fucking amazing. Because he just goes and sits on the stairs. It's just like, cool. Okay. I love it. Yeah, if I could give me a hat. But no, I mean, like what Kalen was saying, same with you. Like, had we had someone else in that role, I don't think it would have gone as well. Like, he was able to do both ends of the spectrum. It's like when he's, pitching, okay, what do you want for dinner? What do you want for dinner? Like, those are final meals. And
Yes.
then on top of it, when they finally cook them all, he's the one who's just like pissed. I'm going to try everything. And then just breaks down. And then like he hugs the kids and then grabs Meryl. And he's like, you're in this too.
Yeah.
And has that moment. It's like, dude, like there are not a lot of actors that can pull off that full scale spectrum sweep of just emotion. And it's like, damn, Mel Gibson, dude, just busting them out, holding nothing back. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I would be very hard pressed to find someone else to try and recast that role that far down the line. I mean, man. But yeah, give me a fucking foil cap, honestly. I don't want to ruin my most secret thoughts. Come on.
Kalen, anything else to add?
I always thought that scene was funny where they're voting. Every time I watch that scene, I think to myself, I'd be like, you know what? You're my little brother, and you're my children, and you're all getting in the fucking car, and we're leaving. We ain't voting for shit.
Yeah.
That scene cracks me up. I'm just like, what? Like, no, get in the fuck. What are we talking about? This isn't a democracy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like particularly with the kids, like Meryl, if you want to stay here, buddy, you can, but I'm taking my children.
No, fuck that.
Going.
He's your little brother. He's getting in the car. He's doing what he's told.
This is the problem. This is what happens when you cast Culkins. They just think they run the place.
Meryl was in a separate building.
He's like in
above a garage.
Yeah,
and they didn't think to go board that one up. They were like, how much wood do we have? We board up 37 windows.
Was that a way into the house though?
What's that?
Was that a way into the house though? I think it might have been separate.
Yeah, no, that's what he's saying. He's saying you didn't think to go stay in that one.
Go stay in that one and
right.
But then you couldn't have the basement scene with the coal and the
that's the thing, Brian. If that had happened, the movie wouldn't have happened in the way.
Actually, wait, back to something you said, Jonathan. So when they're boarding up everything, that was a set, that wasn't like an actual house.
So what it said on the thing was that they went to a college to film this that had a good plot of land where you could film because it was like an agricultural college, which is really cool, because that's one of the things that you just don't think about. Where you're reading, like as I was reading it, I was like, oh, of course they have those because people need to learn these things. They have to go to school, to become farmers and shit like that. So naturally that makes sense. But like, why would I ever in my, fucking, city-based mind ever think of anything like that,
Okay, that makes sense because I did have one thing that annoyed me. Sorry, really quick. Talking about the boarding thing.
Wait. Save annoying shit for the next category.
Never mind. I'm putting a pin in it.
I will say one last thing in regards to the really good scene with Mel Gibson breaking down and his son having an asthma attack, like the I hate you line, like that hits me all the time. like, again, like somebody who like was up until like pretty much about the time that I turned 20, like I still was very like very much believed in God, and you know, whether or not like I had doubts and stuff like that, it was still always something I came back to. Um and so that scene like really hits me every time, because it's like, you know, when in the very like minute like 0.1% that I'm wrong, and that, you know, Jehovah is up there, and that everything in the Bible is 1000% real and accurate and blah 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 blah. You know, uh I would very much be that man. Like if like God deemed it, you know, necessary for whatever reason to take my wife or take my son, like that is like unforgivable. You know, that's something that, yeah, you would cause you to lose your faith, and not just lose your faith, but to demonize the person that took the things you love most. And the thing that I love about this movie is that at the end of the day, like I think baseline, it is about a loss of faith, but below that, I think it's about a loss of self, you know, and a loss of meaning, a loss of purpose. And again, that's something that, you know, like I mentioned before, that we've all experienced at some point in our lives and will continue to experience. Um, where it's like, why am I here? What is the point? Why do I keep waking up every day and going to this mundane job that more or less just gets me by? You know, like what am I leaving behind? I think that is kind of the point of this movie. And you know, I think we all have these divots in our lives, and I think a lot of times we just kind of ride, you know, somewhere in between the divot and the highest highs. And this movie is a great representation of those things. That, yeah, like sometimes life is going to get you down, but if you focus on the things that are important, i.e. family, i.e. yourself, and what you hope for in your dreams, then you know, there's a reason to keep going. There's a reason to see the signs, to see the things that are worth, you know, going after. um and that's why I love, like, again, whether or not, you know, I agree with the religious aspect of this film, I don't think that's the point. I think it's the point of that this movie ends on a very, very hopeful message of that there are there's a reason to keep going. There's a reason to keep fighting. So I think that's one of the, if not the best part of this film, is that it spins that web in a very um intricate narrative structure, that whether you realize it or not, like you're walking out of this movie feeling pretty good about yourself. So, with all that said, I think it's time we go on to our next category, the shit. Here at the shit, we talk about the things we didn't like in the movie, and I feel like this should be a fairly short section, but you know, we'll see. I have like one really kind of big thing, and then I'll open the floor to everybody else. As much as I love this character and I love this scene, I just find it really weird that the sergeant in his like full decorated like uniform and everything would be at this like fucking like podunk like place in Pennsylvania, like all geared up. I could be completely wrong about this, but do they not have like specific people that go to try and get people enlisted, and not fairly high-ranking,
Yeah,
officers.
Yes.
100%.
Okay, cool. That is
I
my
mean-
one thing. So
Could he be mirroring Meryl though? Because like in minor league, Meryl had all these like accolades, and maybe this guy has accolades, but he's still talking about sucking beautiful women's toes. So maybe he didn't go as high as we think.
No. He's talking
so.
about beautiful women sucking your toes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry that way.
Well, no one's sucking his toes, but
No.
Hey, speak for yourself.
definitely be sucking Meryl's toes.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get the line correct, all right? It's getting your toes licked.
Legs. Excuse
Okay.
I'm sorry. Every time I hear that line in my brain, I just have to laugh. I can't not laugh. I'm sorry. It's
All right, more than enough of that.
But yeah, that was like kind of like my one thing. I was just kind of like looking at all of his like fucking ranks on his chest, and I was like, that's not who works at these sorts of things. Not that I've been there, but I just fucking know that they don't send dudes like that specifically to like fucking small towns in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
To do this sort of shit. So that was kind of like a one thing that took me out of the movie, is just that kind of realization. As much as I fucking love that scene and really enjoy the performance that actor gives, like he is so intense in the best way possible.
It could be a retirement job.
That's okay. We'll fucking give him benefit of the doubt there. There you go. Retirement job. I like that.
Good point. Yeah.
All right. Who dares say one more bad thing about this movie? Let's go.
What I was going to say earlier. It's the scene where they're boarding up the windows or the doors, and the way they're boarding up the door, all the alien had to do was like open it, and then there'd be boards. I'm like, why not board it on the side that like? But so that's when I was like, if it was a set, that's annoying because they could have changed that. But if it's an actual building, that makes sense. Because then it was like going with the storyline of they have to go downstairs. But I just watched them putting all these boards on, and I'm like, if you were doing it on the other side of the door, you could do like 3 or 4, not the whole thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
That was just me.
Pushing like into the nail, like the correct way to remove it.
So they like, instead of just opening the door and then there's all the boards, it'd be like they couldn't open the door.
Or they could have really thought it through and like saved themselves enough boards to board themselves up in the basement where they would have probably ended up. You would have to kind of like think about that a little bit.
You would have this surplus of wood and been like, what else do we need to board up? Maybe the attic. And then
start in the attic, go all the way down. We'll end up in the basement. But let's make sure.
Yeah. It's all right. These are nits that we pick, ladies.
I know, so specific.
I like that.
Brian, anything that you don't like about Signs, you fuck?
We touched on it super early, real fast, but only because now that it's not 2001, 2, is that when it came out?
Yeah.
CGI at the very tail end.
Oh, I know.
It's a little rough. Back then, though, I mean, I remember watching it and just being absolutely traumatized. So, for its time period, probably kick ass. And, I mean, as an 11 or 12-year-old, I was scarred for life, clearly. Here we were talking about it.
Yeah.
But it just didn't age super well, which isn't their fault. So, tomatoes, potatoes.
I think they could have gotten away with a man in a suit because, I mean, essentially that's what you're looking at. You really are looking at it.
And with the lighting they could have pulled off, it would have been better and scarier.
It's not even
what we'd already seen and what we'd already been teased with.
And if you're already doing like the reflection in the TV like type thing, there could have been ways of. And then even when he's actually smashing the glass where it's them looking through a window into the house type
Exactly.
thing.
They,
So.
they do a good job of keeping him pretty behind the shadows, so it more or less works. But yeah, well, like when he gets hit up against the water for the very first time and it like hits his shoulder, like you can kind of be like, yeah, that looks a little bit like Gumby right there,
Yeah,
so
and it's also like their worst one too, so it's not horrible. It's just like it could have been cooler had we done it a little more practical, but it is
But
what it
here
is.
we are, like
this
20
is
plus
also
years
like
later. So
this is also in the time of like people just being like CG is the future and this is
That's
what
it.
we do. So
In O2, you never would have, no studio executive would have ever been okay with you saying, we're going to do a guy in a suit. They'd be like, we have CGI, you fucking idiot.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like it's
Yeah.
an alien, motherfucker. Are you stupid?
Right.
like
It's
hello.
CGI forever.
Yep.
And now we're
Only,
doing 24.
only,
We're like practical for days.
really only in the last like 5 or so years have we really gotten this resurgence of like studio films specifically being like understanding of like, yo, we can do CG, but like, and I mean, ish, because we've had so much of de-aging and resurrecting people, like, i.e., Alien Romulus and shit like that, where like they're still doing it, but they're 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 almost going for the unattainable things. Like everything else that we've tried in the last like 20 years since, they're almost okay with like, all right, cool, this shit didn't exactly work out great, so yeah, you guys can do practical effects, but yeah, we're really trying to do make you know people look younger and shit like that. So that's where our aim is for that. So I mean, obviously, we're even in this day and age, we're looking at that sort of shit and going, yeah, that's not that good. So I can't even fathom what it's going to be like 10 to 20 years from now when we look
Yeah.
back at things
Yeah.
like fucking Rogue One and Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny and be like, hey, what did we do, gang?
So back to Signs.
Yeah.
My my biggest complaint about the movie is actually very early in the movie.
hmm
And I think it's actually like by far the weakest thing in the movie. It's like the one thing where I watch that and I go, wow, that's actually bad. It's like really bad. The movie opens with the son stabbing his own dog to death because it was going after his sister, and the dog is just like immediately dead, and then like nobody really cares.
Yeah.
And it's totally bizarre, and it doesn't make sense tonally. Like it doesn't really make sense emotionally. It doesn't really like it's not really framed in a way that really fits within the context of the story. And I really thought they on that particular sequence they kind of shit the bed. I didn't think that really works at all. I was like, that's a really weird sore thumb moment in an otherwise mostly perfect movie. And it's funny because even later on in the movie, they accidentally forget to bring their dog inside, so it gets killed by the aliens. And I understand that he did that so that he could have the dog yelping outside, like that was the real purpose of it. But I'm just like, who are these farmers who hate their fucking dogs so much that they're just like, stab this one to death? Who gives a shit? No one's worried about the kid being traumatized. He only stabbed a dog to death. Everyone does that when they're 10, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, whoops, we left her outside. Ah, the bitch got killed by aliens. Whoops. And yeah, I don't think those moments work very well.
Yeah.
To expand on that really quick,
Yeah.
I didn't realize they had two dogs until all of a sudden he's like, Isabel. And I'm like, because at first I'm like, wait, didn't the kid kill the dog? So that little part was like, definitely didn't tie in together. And then he's calling Isabel. So I was like, okay, obviously it's a different dog, but like that kind of got lost.
Yeah. The first dog's name is Houdini.
Yep.
And yeah, no, there's a line in regards to that where like the dog is dead and they come upon it, and even the reactions from the characters are not like, yo, what the fuck? It's
Right.
just kind of like
nobody is that upset that the 10-year-old just had to stab a dog to death.
yeah,
everyone would be a little
exactly.
bit
Like
more
no
upset.
one, no, everyone's just kind of like weirdly like calm about it. But even Rory Culkin's character, he says he tried to kill Bo, which I think is a very like maybe here's the thing, like had Bo said he tried to kill so and so, that would have worked a little bit better. But Rory Culkin's character, does anyone have his name off the top of their head? Why can't I think?
Morgan.
Morgan. Yeah.
Morgan.
Morgan.
When Morgan says it, Morgan's so eloquent in all the rest of his verbiage and so well spoken and so like intelligent that he tried to kill Bo just seems inaccurate, right? It's like had he said he was trying to hurt Bo or he was attacking Bo, like that, like he tried. How do you know that's what he was trying to do?
Right.
How do you know he wasn't just being aggressive? Or
And if that dog attacked that little girl, she'd be hurt.
yes,
Yeah.
There'd be
exactly.
no instance where she's not hurt by that big dog.
Yes, exactly.
Not at all. Yeah.
Serial
So
killer
again,
guy,
it's
where
like,
he says
okay,
he fell on me.
yeah,
So, like how he killed him, and I'm like, and it's sticking out of its neck.
It's like,
Right.
yeah.
He landed on his neck.
Like a lot of red flags here, but all right.
yeah, exactly.
The cops and that are cool with it, so moving on.
But I will say emotionally, like how we got there was they're in the cornfield and he just like looks up and the cop's like, what's up? He's like, I don't hear my kids anymore.
Yeah.
So
I
like
mean,
that's what
that
brings
bit
us
is great.
there. That was
bit
good.
is
But then
great.
also like, sorry, if I just watched my brother like stab my dog, I'd be hysterically crying. So you would hear me.
Right.
Maybe I'm just getting too nitpicky.
No. Both of the kids would be incredibly upset.
Upset.
The adults would be
Yeah.
upset. Everyone would be very upset by that. Yeah.
Well, again, you like as people who all own pets, like what would your response be to your pet being you walking upon your pet being dead? More or less like
I would be
stabbed
like
in the throat.
shattered. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Fucking barbecue.
Exactly.
skewer.
You would be fucking heartbroken.
me.
I
Yeah.
would be fucking heartbroken.
Yeah.
Like you all know my dog. Like you know what a sweetheart he is. If I came upon that like that,
Yeah, and don't
Yeah,
get me wrong,
fucking
farm
dead.
life is different life, obviously.
absolutely,
True.
There are
absolutely it is.
working animals and all that whole thing. But in that situation, they were just like trying to give him water when he like went kind of feral. Like it's not like a farm dog.
Yeah.
Not the way they're setting up the scene
Yeah,
for him to be like shivved in prison in the neck.
Even farmers love their working dogs, though. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
and
they may not
Kalen,
coddle them the way we do our dogs, but they still love their working
Yeah, but
dogs.
goddamn.
Yeah.
yeah, and Kalen, to your point about the dog, like, oh yeah, we forgot to bring. No, if you love your dog,
You don't
do
leave
not
them outside
forget to
during the
bring
alien
They would have
Your
been
dog.
boarded up in the house with us. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that
Yes.
just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
To
For
be
me,
fair,
like
he
if
does
if
tell
I
Meryl, he's like, because of the Houdini thing and because the cop said there is all the like history of animals being aggressive, he tells Meryl like, chain up Isabel behind the shed, and then they're just like, oh shit, that's when they brought
yeah, that's
like,
fair, but I mean,
Devil's Advocate, but
she wasn't
still.
chained up behind the shed for
I was gonna say like
days.
a week.
Yeah, this movie takes place over a couple of days. I doubt that they did it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like this
It's been a month. Isabel's still back there. That's just the fucking aliens' problem now. She's fucking feral at this point.
I mean, but when we do catch up with Graham, where he says that line, Isabel, like you're gonna feel really silly when
Very
this all turns
silly.
up to make believe, like
Yeah.
she is chained up back there. Like maybe they just never moved her, over the course of a couple of days because Graham didn't feel comfortable. So like if I was to play devil's advocate, maybe that's what it was. Maybe they just became
You're gonna feel
so.
silly.
But I mean, again, like as a as like a fur baby parent, like I just don't see myself letting that happen. But it's 2002. These were different times.
In Pennsylvania, maybe.
um, Anybody else have any bad stuff? Any things they didn't like about Signs? Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! We're all good.
M. Night
Yes.
Shyamalan is in the movie, right? That is him playing the
Yes.
the
We're
doctor.
gonna get to that here in a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. So, unless anybody has any more random thoughts that they would like to contribute, one,
I don't know,
two,
man.
three. Speak
One
now,
random
Fred,
thought.
hold your peace. Yes.
I
go
would
ahead.
have liked, it's very short. They play on the fact that the mom and Bo have some sort of like psychic abilities because they dream about stuff. It was like very, very small, but I wish it would have like expanded a bit more.
See, I actually loved that they didn't explain that because it felt very Stephen King to me. It's just like, oh, by the way, the kid's psychic.
Yeah.
I love that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
She's got the shine.
Yeah, she's got the shine.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
And it's not the mom's fault. She was hit by a car, so it's her neurons.
But she
were
knew
firing,
what
which,
to tell him.
Right.
She was
obviously
dying,
she
Abigail.
had some sort of
No, Abby's right though. That the implication there is that she was having some sort of psychic moment there, and then obviously Bo tells Morgan, "I don't want you to die."
I don't want
and
you
then
to die.
Says,
Yeah.
I dreamed this. So there is the mom, the daughter. There's psychic powers happening there. I love that is sort of treated as like nobody else even notices that. It's like only they even know about it. For whatever reason, I think that's very cool.
Well, sometimes things are better left unsaid.
True. Okay.
And
I take my comment back. It was done.
No, you're not wrong. Like
no. I agree. Now that I have
know?
another opinion, I think it being with everything else going on in the story, that would have been, if you went further into that, it would have been too much.
And I think that's probably why. Is because back in these days, Shyamalan was very lean in his storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that if you kind of don't elaborate on things too much, it gives the audience an opportunity to decide for themselves. It's kind of like if you don't show the monster, then people give the monster a whole other different identity themselves, and it makes things scarier. And we are going to talk about some scary things in our next section, Truly Terrifying Tidbits. So, this being a horror podcast, we do like to discuss scary things. So, we're going to talk about some scary things in this section. And first and foremost, I would like to pose this question to all of you. Do you consider Signs to be a horror movie? A lot of nodding going on from the bottom half. Brian, you just have this
he looks a little undecided
on your face. You're like, no, it never scared me once. I'm fine.
No, that's not the case. I think it is a horror movie, verbatim, but I don't know. It's more of not still horror, but I see it as a thriller, almost home invasion movie. It has that take to it, which is obviously under the umbrella of horror, of course.
Yeah.
But
I was about to say that, so the words right out of my mouth.
But it gives me those vibes, and it has that I don't know, that sci-fi edge to it that doesn't make me want to say horror, but I don't know.
Horror can be sci-fi though.
That's very true. Like
Horror can be science fiction, action.
I was gonna say sci-fi
romance.
is part of horror a little bit.
Absolutely,
I think.
absolutely,
Yeah.
it is.
Very true. I just get that like more like War of the Worlds kind of take on it, so it's like more thriller than horror,
which
but
is also a
it's
horror
very
movie.
much in that genre. So
well, okay, two things. First
definitely a
and foremost, one of the scariest things to ever happen to like America was the national broadcast of Orson Welles doing War of the Worlds, in which people thought it was actually happening on the radio. Back, gosh, I couldn't remember the actual time period, but I'm sure it was like 1950s or 60s, and people legitimately were terrified of them.
That.
Yeah, 40s maybe.
I think it was more like the 30s.
30s.
Mm-hmm. This was when
like
there was
just
still
radio. Yeah.
Radio was the prime source. But I would go out on a limb to say this is M. Night Shyamalan's scariest movie. And I don't know how the rest of you feel about that.
I think The Sixth Sense is like just a little more for me. Yeah, okay. I would say The Sixth Sense. That's like my number one scary.
This is not a horror movie. Just want to make that clear.
Wait, what isn't a horror movie?
That Signs is not a horror movie. I'm saying that it is.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
No, I wanted to make that clear.
Okay.
I'm standing against that by any means. No, I don't know. I just had it. It just gives me a weird take on it. Like it is very much a horror movie. I just have such a weird feeling towards it, as far as like it almost turning home invasion, even though it's not. I don't know.
Well, there are a lot of home invasion movies that, I mean, home invasion movies are, for all intents and purposes, horror movies. If you have ever seen The Strangers, The Strangers is the home invasion movie, and it is horrific as fuck.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, home invasion is, like, that's the great thing about horror, is that it really does, like as you said, Brian, there is a whole umbrella of different subgenres underneath, you know, that horror section. So, I mean, me personally, I think I do consider Signs to be more horror adjacent than probably most of Shyamalan's catalog, if I'm being completely honest. And most of his movies are horror or horror adjacent, I would say. Kalen, anything further you want to add in that regard?
Oh no, I think that people can get caught up in what is and isn't horror by thinking that either horror is one genre that doesn't blend with others, or that thinking that horror means it's absolutely terrifying. And neither one of those are what represents horror. Horror is a specific kind of storytelling. It's a specific kind of genre. But like a Western can be a horror, a romance can be a horror, science fiction is often horror. Action adventure movies can be horror. You know what I mean?
Indiana Jones, baby.
Yeah. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, right? Like,
yep.
So I think that,
and like, yeah.
Yeah. So I think to me, this is, in my opinion, it's inarguably a horror movie. It's not the scariest horror movie ever made. It's not the most violent horror movie ever made. It's more hopeful. It's more uplifting. It's got a lot of heart. There's a family, yada, yada, but it's still very much a horror film, in my opinion.
Abby, what about you? Anything further to add?
Oh, agreed. Yeah.
All right, gang. Well, if you had to pick, what do you consider to be the scariest scene of the movie? Think about it. Abby, go.
Okay. I mean, there's a few, but I think the back-to-back of Meryl watching the birthday video and then the next scary scene kind of after that is when he's at Ray's house when he
Mhm.
says like don't look in the pantry because I trapped one there. That was very also no one has a knife that freaking polished that you can like
Right?
look under the door. Okay, maybe that's one thing that annoyed me because he pulls it out and it's like all matte, and then like the next scene it's like so shiny. But like that back to back of like when we were finally starting to see the aliens was like for me it was scary.
I like that.
Yeah.
Brian.
Damn, I had two that were different from you, Eb. But I think my top one is still when he's in the cornfield by himself with the leg.
Yeah.
There's
think
so
that's-
He drops
much
the
happening.
flashlight and the flashlight
Yeah.
isn't working. It's like
Flashlight
so
drop. The sounds, he's hearing it behind him doing the clicking before we know that that's what they sound like too. And like watching it a couple times later and you know that that's how they sound, knowing that it's behind him and around him, and then seeing the leg and just like the distance down those trails, like, ugh. Yeah, that's why I don't fucking want to live anywhere rural or with fucking cornfields, because fuck that shit.
Yeah, that's the one that Celeste always goes to. Like,
Oof.
she just like Signs scares the shit out of her. For some reason, she always wants to watch it, but she's always like, "Dude, the cornfield scene
God, it
scares the
kills
piss
me.
out of me."
God, it kills me every time today. I was just like, it's like fucking 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm just like, God, this is fucking traumatizing. Fuck.
Kalen.
Morgan's asthma attack.
Yeah. No, that's
Huge.
It's the most
real
dreadful
world
moment
shit.
for me. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. As a former asthmatic child, that scene fucks me up.
Dude, so intense.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a parent, the like, particularly, in my mind of like a couple of nights ago, Killian just like throwing up, or a couple of mornings ago rather, Killian just like throwing up, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you just have to be there and like hold them and just like try and console them. Like, yeah, it's legitimately like terrifying, and the feeling of helplessness is just the worst. All you want to do is make someone better, and there's nothing you can do, and that shit's awful.
What's crazy in that scene too is that like from any perspective, it's like from your perspective, like you can only do so much to help. Like you're so limited, and then from their perspective, it's like the claustrophobia and like isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for both the isolation, this is like, man, you just get hit from every angle.
Yeah. For me, if it wasn't the scene that I mentioned earlier with the alien on the rooftop, which I do find to be very disturbing. Without fail, even if I think about it right now, the shot that always gives me the chills is when he brings in the television set and he sees the alien in the reflection. Like, I feel like I had stuff like that as a kid where I would see shit in the reflection of my TV and it just scared me. So I think that's a very primal thing for me, is to just kind of see something that's out of focus and to just kind of have your heart sink. I remember I was a little kid, and it was early, like I was just going to school or something like that, and I was messing around with my sister, and I had thought she was in one space. I thought she was like under the bed or outside the room or something like that. And I saw my closet door move just a smidge, but I didn't hear anything, and I just saw it out of my peripherals. And I remember being so scared because I thought I knew where she was. Um and I remember like creeping towards the closet to try and open it up, and how scared I was, and just that sort of just outside of your mind, your brain trying to process what's happening, sort of feeling is incredibly terrifying. So I think I'll go with that, the reflection in the TV. Um, Anywho, that's all the scary stuff. So we are going to go on to our next category entitled The Rewatch. So here at the Rewatch, we discuss the film's rewatchability, some of our favorite moments from the flick, and rate its overall entertainment value. So first and foremost, I'm gonna pull a segment here that I really like to do, which is if you had to sit someone down and pull out your phone and show them a clip on YouTube to get them hooked to watch the rest of the movie, what would that clip be? Brian, take it away.
Oh, God. How long is the clip allowed to be?
It can be
I
as
was
long
gonna
as
ask
you
that
want. I mean, it
question
can't
too,
be
yeah.
it can't be the entire movie, but you know,
Well-
if it needs to be like fucking 5
Because-
minutes, go for it.
Oh, 5 minutes? The first 5 minutes.
Good, good. That's really good.
I mean, obviously, you get like a little bit of the intro credits because it's ridiculous how intense it is, and then the first 5 minutes of the movie because
That's
goddamn,
good.
watching
I
it
like
again
that a lot.
today, I was like, okay, obviously the intro credits are insane, but the first 5 minutes of that movie, I was just like, holy shit, I forgot how fucking hard in the paint this movie goes. Just right out the gates. They're just like, here you are, you're fucking hooked. Good luck, buckle up, motherfucker. So, yeah.
I like it. Abby.
Mine would be the scene, like the monologue scene where it's like, you know, group 1 and group 2,
Yeah.
when he's explaining that. So I would start like kind of like halfway through that because you can cut off like a good front portion of it. So the deep part that Graham is talking about, and then the gum story that Meryl goes into, and just like kind of like cut it down a little bit enough to know that the film has some fearful things, but also just kind of like the juxtaposition of the very deep to then like, I would have been traumatized if this girl threw up in my mouth.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Kalen?
Well, I think both of their picks are better than mine. And every time we do this, I feel like Brian has the objectively correct pick. But I was going to say the car scene because it gives you a good idea of the tone of the movie. Where they're all
What
climbing
part of the car scene though?
when they're all climbing on top of the car to get the radio.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
thinking when she was pinned in half.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the scene. That's
Damn.
the
I
one.
was like,
Giving away the
no, I
farm.
like
There.
that.
All right.
oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. This is a spoiler review.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
No, I like that because there is some intrigue because you hear like all the clicks and shit like that, and
Mm-hmm.
you know,
And it shows them like as family. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you'll lose the signal.
Exactly. I think that's right where I
They'll
cut
get
it
the
off.
shortest
because you
kid to
lose the signal.
climb on top of the car and
Yeah.
I think I would do the Ray Ready scene right up until he looks underneath the door. I think that would kind of get you dialed into what the film was.
You're saying like right
What a
before the
teaser.
end shower, right?
Yeah, well, like right, kind of like after he does like one of my all-time favorite lines ever, which is we threw him in a paddy wagon. He's like,
He goes, "I'm with the police." I am the police.
I am a police officer.
I'm a police officer.
Yes, we'll give you the same lenient charge that we did on the. I'm like, oh my god, so not
Any
convincing.
mouths patty wagging afterwards
Yeah,
and
dude,
like
I fucking
embarrassing.
died, dude. I fucking died.
God damn it.
I love that scene because it manages to be equal parts like emotional, comedic, and scary all at the same time, you know?
And again, this is him hitting that spectrum of
Yeah.
like, I'm tough, I'm handling this,
Effortlessly.
I'm scared, I'm vulnerable, and I don't
you
know
know?
how to do this because I'm a pastor or whatever, and just like fucking
So good.
figure it out, be a man, I don't know. Yeah, just nailing it.
All right, guys, not to be confused with your YouTube scene that you would try and get someone hooked on, but what is your favorite scene from the movie?
Fuck.
Kalen.
Honestly, it's probably the scene in the basement. From when the aliens are getting inside through the asthma attack, that probably is my favorite scene in the movie.
Mine is the couch scene. I love that scene so much. I love Graham's monologue. I find it so fascinating. Abby, what about you?
I mean, yeah, that's mine too.
Mm-hmm. B-Ray?
It's just so good.
I love me some couch scene. It's great. I like really any scene where they like bring some humility to Meryl. And just kind of take him down a little bit, or like at least like just like show some personality behind the like how we said, like that he's not just like this buck just fucking around, like when they can really like humanize him. And then also like just the fucking alien on the roof scene is wild.
Yeah.
That's definitely up there. As far as like not being too personal, like it's just such a cool scene.
Yeah.
Excluding the fact that a Olympic Scandinavian.
Oh my gosh, that is. I actually wrote that line down because
It's
it was
like,
so
all right.
funny.
Fuck you and your
Like-
sarcasm.
Okay, I was out of line with the Scandinavian Olympic jumper thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna move my favorite scene to them running around the building against each other.
God, I do
And
love
we're
that
questioning
scene.
about them. Like, well, it was really
Well,
dark.
because then you think the cop's gonna come up with some like elaborate story of a great woman, and she's like, "Oh, this woman just spit everywhere," and I like can't like So she went from Scandinavian Olympian to this woman just spit everywhere.
And when the alien gets on the roof, and he was like, "You're sure it was the brothers?" Like, it's great. Yeah, I love when they get like a little demoralized. It's like, oh, shit's getting real. Like those are some of my favorite scenes.
So M. Night Shyamalan likes to take a page out of his favorite filmmaker's book, Alfred Hitchcock, and do cameos in his own films. Some might say very elaborate cameos. But he appears, at least in all the films of his that I have seen, maybe not The Visit. I don't know. I can't remember. But most of the films that I've seen, Shyamalan has some sort of cameo, and we like to rate those cameos. Kaylin, I'd like you to start with this one. What do you rate this cameo out of M. Night Shyamalan's cameos in his films?
I think it's great. I think this is one of the few ones where he like really acts as a character and is an important character within the context of the movie, and shows off a little bit of acting chops. I think it's pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like the scene where they're having that conversation, and he's talking about how if it had been 15 seconds earlier or 15 seconds later, I wouldn't have hit your wife. And, he's like, I had your number next to my phone for 6 months, and I've been staring at it for 6 months, trying to figure out what to say. I really liked it. And I really thought he portrayed the man with severe guilt weighing on his conscience very well, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian?
Yeah, I agree. I think he handled it well, just as far as like they needed that role in the film. Like, not entirely, but the way that they did inject it was really cool to give him some oomph behind it too. I think he killed it, just as like that, like kind of shrill, like just demoralized person having to come to terms with what happened. So I think it added a cool little spark to it. And he had like so many like little tidbits of like the water and the lake and like the phone number. And when she hit the fan, it was the phone number right next to the phone. And that's why it was like tied in. And there was so many little bits in there. But I think, yeah, personally, he did a fucking killer job. Rocked it.
Abigail?
To be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of directors making cameos, but I will say, if he was going to, he did it very well. Like, he gave the character justice. He was kind of that person who was in the story the whole time, but then the amount of time that he was actually on film was very small, but it influenced the whole film. So I'll say he did a good job. I just don't like, I don't know. I'm like, directors having a movie. I just have a weird thing about that, but he did it very well.
Yeah.
I don't know, Kalen. Would you wager that this is probably the most screen time he affords himself as?
This is by far the biggest. Okay, so no. In Lady in the Water, he's a full blown main character.
Okay,
yeah, I forgot about that.
But aside from that one movie, second to that, this is the biggest role he has in any of his movies, where he actually plays an important character with a real role, with important lines, and with actual like drama and gravitas to the role. And yeah.
I mean, I still have yet to see Lady in the Water.
You haven't seen Lady in the Water?
No, we've talked about this.
Okay, all right.
We talked about this. I'm waiting to watch it now for the pod.
Understood.
But I would say out of all of his cameos that I have seen, I would say this is by far my favorite. I agree with everything that you said, Kalen, specifically, that like his just the performance he gives is on point. It doesn't even feel for as large a role as it is, it doesn't feel gratuitous in ways that like something like his role in Split and Glass feel, and maybe even to a lesser extent The Village, which like doesn't really bother me, but I feel like he delivers a really solid, believable performance in this, and I feel very empathetic to his plight, because he's just, how would any of us react in that situation? You just wouldn't know, like, something that was 1000% a complete accident, but you took a life. What do you do? Like, how do you go about that? It's has to be the most horrific, just gut-wrenching thing to live with, and I do think that he really gives a very standout performance in this flick. The best of all his cameos, in my personal opinion. Gang, what do you rate this film out of 10 in terms of rewatch value? This is not your overall score. This is just like, how much do you find yourself wanting to go back to this film, or how much fun do you have watching this movie? It's kind of an odd category, but if you can break it down to the best of your ability, how rewatchable do you consider this film out of 10? Brian?
I give it a 9. Like I watched it today, and I would rewatch it again, like tonight. It's fucking rad, and I don't know. It has that good like nostalgia to it as well as being like a fun thriller. So yeah, definitely a solid 9.
Beautiful. Abby?
I'm gonna give it a 9 as well. And I also, after watching it again today, it's added to my like comfort backroom or background movie list
Yes.
with a few others. One being The Shining. That's like my number one. So this is probably like right behind that. Just like, something you put on in the background you've seen a few times, but you want to engage with the story occasionally. So yeah.
Excluding the intro music, that just makes me want to fucking
Well, yeah.
like aggressively eat or something. I don't know.
We'll fast forward through that, and then yeah.
Right.
Kalen?
So I'm gonna say 9 because for me, 10 would be a movie that I can literally watch like every day, and I've got a few of those. But yeah, I mean, this is a movie that I've been watching for 22 years, and I will continue watching for the next 22 years.
Beautiful. I'm gonna take what you said and run with it. For me, this is the 10 out of 10. This is something that literally, if it's on, like back when like we had, DirecTV, if it was on, that's what we were watching. Like it didn't matter what else was on. It was just like, okay, cool, Signs is on. We're gonna watch Signs. Like I never get sick of it. The jokes always land. The scares always land. It does at the same time manage to be a full-blown comfort movie. Like I love being in this world. I love being with these characters. It really just doesn't get old. It is just the gift that keeps giving. So yeah, for me that is that's like 10 out of 10. So rewatch value, roughly what are we at? Like a 9.6 out of 10 for rewatch value, give or take.
Yeah, that
I'm
matters.
not. I don't do math.
I'm like, is a quarter of 1.6?
I don't know. Is that? I'm trying here, okay?
We're at
I'm trying to
9.25.
give numbers that make sense to earlobes, okay? And that's all I'm trying to do.
The lobes, not the drums, right?
Just the low.
Just the lobe, not the drum.
I did not major in anatomy either.
To touch on that, it is cool, not the lobes.
This is my show, and to really reiterate that point, we are going to go to the Jony horror score. I love you all. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are great. Here at the Jony Horror Score, we are going to give our final thoughts and rankings on the film. But before we do that, we are going to discuss the response and legacy of the movie. So you will give me one moment here. Here we go. Pardon me while I do lots of reading, ladies and gentlemen. Again, this will be taken from Wikipedia, so if stuff sounds stupid or doesn't go anywhere, it's not my fault. Wikipedia is a crazy place. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 75% based on reviews from 237 critics, with an average rating of 6.8 out of 10. The site's critical consensus reads, with Signs, Shyamalan proves once again an expert at building suspense and giving audience the chills. On Metacritic, the film scored 59 out of 100 based on 36 reviews, indicating mixed or average reviews. Audience polled the cinema score gave the film an average grade of B on an A+ to F scale. Our favorite guy in the world, Roger Ebert, gave the film 4 out of 4 stars. Holy shit! What do you know? Writing M. Night Shyamalan Signs is the work of a born filmmaker able to summon apprehension out of thin air. When it is over, we think not how little has been decided, but how much has been experienced. At the end of the film, I had to smile, recognizing how Shyamalan has essentially ditched a payoff. He knows, as we all sense, that payoffs have grown boring. Jeff Perev of the Toronto Star gave the film a scoring of 3 out of 5 stars, saying, ultimately, Signs, as original, interesting, and ambitious as it is a post 9/11 movie of possibly the most dubious sort. Doesn't really
The fuck does that even mean?
Yeah, I was
elaborate
like,
much.
he's just
Right,
using big
right.
words to sound smart.
He
Highly
does.
dubious.
Okay. Nell Manow of Common Sense Media. What a terrible name. Terrible name for any sort of thing. Common Sense Media.
Open.
Um, gave the film 4 out of 5 stars. She praised the casting of and Shyamalan's direction, saying his only flaw was not leaving anything to the audience's imagination. Um, Okay, here we go. Here's the shit. Mick LaSalle of the San Francisco Chronicle gave the film 1 out of 4, thinking that the film had few thoughts and no thrills. Variety's Tom McCarthy criticized the film for its lack of originality, writing, after the overwrought Unbreakable and now the meager Signs, it is fair to speculate whether Shyamalan's persistence in replicating the otherworldly formula of Sixth Sense might not be a futile and self-defeating exercise. Ugh. A. O. Scott of the New York Times wrote that Mr. Shyamalan is undone by his pretensions, and that the theme of paternal grief is articulated here with a heavy handed, incoherent sentimentality that smothers real emotion. Mm. On the theme of faith, he concludes Mr. Shyamalan never gives us anything to believe in other than his own power to solve problems of his own posing, and his command of a narrative logic is as circular and as empty as those bare patches of the cornfield.
Narrative logic is allowed to be circular, you fucking moron. I'm serious.
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, let's elaborate on some of this because I mean, again, M. Night Shyamalan is undone by his pretensions, and the theme of paternal grief is articulated here with a heavy hand. I'm sorry, but I I don't know of like many other ways to handle grief other than heavy-handed because that is the way grief tends to hit. Very rarely do I think grief is a small thing that we can just kind of get over. You know, I think that's the point.
If he thinks that's a heavy-handed handling of grief, he should see what grief looks like in real life.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
shit.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, go fucking watch Hereditary or Midsommar, and
Woo. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
those are both.
My heart just went woo. Yeah.
I think Mel Gibson manages to be very subtle in most
Measured.
of his bits of grief in this movie.
It's subtle, but it's also very powerful.
Yeah, well, I
And
mean
the
that's
subtleness
like
is what makes it.
exactly. And so I mean I don't know. Maybe this is just like I said, 2002. They were different times. What are you gonna do? Um, After the overwrought Unbreakable and now the meager Signs, it is fair to speculate whether Shyamalan's persistence in replicating the otherworldly formula of the Sixth Sense might not be a futile and self-defeating exercise. Okay, first of all, Unbreakable is not overwrought, so he can go fuck off.
Mhm.
Um,
He's saying I'm a boring old man and I don't want to watch genre movies anymore. That's
Yeah.
what he's saying.
Yeah,
And I don't care.
Yeah, there's some
And
of
also
these
the
critics.
whole point of storytelling is to not tell the same story over and over again.
Yeah,
So like, why are you looking for the Sixth Sense? Like, this is a different route he's taking.
agreed. In 2004, the Brazilian birthday party scene was ranked as number 77 on Bravo's 100 scariest movie moments. That's exciting. Box office. Signs grossed a little over 60 million from a little over 3,000 theaters in its opening weekend. At the time of its release, the film had the second highest August opening weekend behind Rush Hour 2. It was the biggest opening weekend of Mel Gibson's career and earned more than Disney's previous best for a live action non sequel, not based on existing popular source material held by Pearl Harbor. The film went on to gross over 200 million domestically and over 180 million internationally for a total of 408,200,000. Just a lot of money. It
Big
earned a
numbers,
lot of
yeah.
money. It ranked behind only The Sixth Sense in Shyamalan's box office success and grossing more than The Village and Split. So that is all I have for the release of the film. Any thoughts on any of that beyond the critical analysis game? Kalen, you were probably the only one of us to see this in theaters. Is that correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
Wow. It's wild.
VHS, but whatever.
What?
I owned it on VHS, but whatever.
Yeah,
VHS is pretty cool.
super dope.
Just saying.
I don't have it anymore. Sorry.
Oh,
Not nearly as cool then.
Yeah. Downgrades it, you know.
Those are worth some money. These I don't know. Are
Yeah,
these worth money?
I scrubbed this movie trying to get like the most like in clear shot of that alien on the roof.
Did you get it?
Pause start.
no, because it'd be like,
Yeah, it was like, oh, fucking
Yeah.
shit. My parents were like, "Why are you still doing this?" I'm like, "Because you brought this into my life."
yeah.
You have no one to blame but yourself.
Yeah. Oh, why does Brian have night terrors? Thank you. Because you own the VHS of Signs, you animals.
All right, gang. We're gonna give our final thoughts and rankings. Abby, I'm gonna let you take this one. All right. Final thoughts and your ranking out of 10, please.
Okay, final thoughts are love it. I think it's a there's so many storylines going on, but they all tie together as far as like the grief, the comedic relief, the family aspect of the like sister brothers situation. It's hard for me to give things a 10 out of 10, so I have to do a 9 out of 10 just because like there might be something that would be a 10 out of 10 after
That's
this.
fair.
So 9 out of 10. Yeah.
Absolutely. Kalen.
Great movie, classic. One of my favorite movies of that time in my life, by a lot. I give it a 10 out of 10. I try not to be super stingy with 10 out of 10s because I feel like chasing a platonic ideal that may or may not exist, it just doesn't work for me. And I can only give this movie demerits based on those dog scenes. Like if I'm gonna hit a movie on that, then that's a bridge too far for me. So yeah, I'd say 10 out of 10, classic. brilliant movie. I put it right up there with, you know, all those classic movies we never shut up about. Johnny.
Love it.
Now,
Brian.
I'm gonna go 9.5, and I love it. Again, it is a classic. It is from our childhood. It's perfect. It has family. It has thrill. It has suspense. It has the buildup that I would try and hold any other movie that tries to build up suspense to. I'm like, are you doing Signs? Then you're not doing it right. Because, man, especially because we grew up with it, that it just has that nostalgia to it as well. And it has a lot of those feels. But, man, it is hard to not try and compare other movies to Signs. So it's a, did I say 9.5. I'm going 9.5. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys all said it. Really, as I've been harping over the last 3 hours, I love this movie. I have so much fun every time I watch this movie. I love the relationship between Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix. It's funny, it's charming, it's emotional. It reminds me of my relationship with my big brother. And it's scary, it's entertaining. It just doesn't get old. Really, with the exception of Unbreakable, which I do find to be M. Night Shyamalan's Sistine Chapel. I really do think Unbreakable is, better than even the Sixth Sense. Um, Signs is just right below that. Um, uh, it's just only because Unbreakable is like a perfect film for me. I just have no notes. I really don't have notes for Signs. It's just not operating quite on the same level as Unbreakable is, with themes and aspirations and humanity. Signs is a 10 out of 10 movie for me. I'll watch it right now. I'll wake up and watch it tomorrow morning. Like, it won't be boring. Like I said, it's one of my favorite Mel Gibson performances, if not one of his very best of all time. So, um, yeah, if someone can do math better than me, maybe you can come up with the exact number, but I feel like we're safe to say it's like a
9.75.
9.7 out of 10. Yeah.
9.75.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say 9.75.
Yeah.
Think of quarters.
Beautiful.
Think of quarters. That's right.
All right, gang. Really, one final question for each of you before we wrap all this up. If we were going to feature Signs at the Johnny Horror Drive-In, what would you double feature this movie with? I am just going to just go for it and say that I would pair it with The Thing. I would very much start with Signs. And lead out with a really hopeful message and then just plunge all that hopefulness
Into
into the
darkness.
ground. But I do think they make a very good pairing of suspense and dread and humanity in regards to alien horror. Abby, what do you have?
So I was going a little bit of a different route. I had two. Just because I do think there were some very heavy parts and signs. So it was either going to be Independence Day, where we kick some alien ass and also, fun, or Mars Attacks, because
Yeah.
it's funny, you know. So I'm
Yeah.
just like comedic relief after like the heaviness of some of the signs storyline.
All right, I'm gonna push you a little bit. Gun to your head. Which one of those do you choose, and which one would you show first?
I think I would do signs and then wait, if it was a triple feature,
No,
Okay.
no,
A
no.
double
Just you
feature.
only get two. You only get two.
okay, I only get two. Okay, I would do Signs first, and then I would do Independence Day.
Beautiful.
Just
Love
so because like we didn't really get to see how we fought back against the aliens, so we need Independence Day for that.
I love that. Oh, that's good. Brian.
God, you guys have really good ones. I want to go. Fuck. I'm just gonna go full blown aliens. Fuck it, or alien. Excuse. Just fucking send it.
Which one do you do first?
Signs.
Signs first, and with
Always.
Alien.
Let them think you're chilling, and then we go out, and then you get
Yeah.
I love it. Okay.
you overstepped.
Okay, Kalen.
So I think Signs is Shyamalan's most Spielbergian movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep promising the audience that one of these days I'm going to not double feature with Spielberg or Hitchcock. Today's not the day. So I'm double featuring this with the movie that reminds me the most of Signs, and that's Poltergeist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Good,
dude,
good.
that's good. That
that's
honestly
good.
might be the best one. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really good, dude.
A scary movie with family and heart and hope, but also terrifying. And I think that Signs takes a lot of its cues from Poltergeist.
Agree
Beautiful.
with that. Yeah.
Which one do you put first?
Poltergeist and then Signs, just because that's the release order.
I love that.
Mhm.
Love it. Good picks, gang. I love all those. That's good. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. Like I said off mic, this is something that's pretty much been in the works since like our very first episode with Abby and myself. I'm pretty sure Signs came up in that episode, and then Signs has repeatedly come up in almost every single episode of the Johnny Horror podcast or the Johnny Jaws cast since. So this has been a long time coming, and I'm really glad that all of you guys were here. This is like our Halloween special. This is kind of like our my big thing for this month. So I was so happy to be able to have all you guys here. So thank you so much. Um, and just really quick, rapid fire. Any plans for Halloween this year? Anything that you guys are planning on doing? Whether it be a party, whether it be going to a haunt, whether it be just sitting at home, handing out candy. Kalen, hit me.
I'm going to be recovering from surgery.
Oh shit! What are you getting surgery?
Yes, we'll talk about that later.
Okay, fair
Get
enough.
it. You got
Okay.
this, baby.
Rest well, my friend. Abigail.
I'm not dying. I'm recovering from surgery.
Right.
Rest well, my friend.
You got this.
I am having a Halloween party on Saturday the 19th because the weekend after I have to work.
Lame.
Whatever.
Lame about the work, not about the party.
I know. No. I know. Got to pay the bills though.
Yeah, damn straight. And B-Rye.
We're just on the works of bringing Halloween to this freaking neighborhood. It's old and sad, and no one decorates, and we're putting shit out. So
Good.
there's
Good for
kids,
you.
there's kids in the neighborhood above us, and we're like, we put enough decorations out. They'll come down here,
That's the spirit.
and then we'll
love
hand out some fucking candy.
Attaboy. Well, myself, I think we'll do what we usually do, which is we some relatives come over, friends come over, we throw booze and children in a wagon along with a speaker, and we play music and we roam around the neighborhoods trick-or-treating and getting drunk, and it is really a hell
Love
of a
it.
time. So but
High five.
We're doing a group. I don't even know which
I
direction.
can't figure out.
I'm going down first. Abs, other
Okay,
way.
so Abby gets one, then Abby to Kalen.
Kalen,
Other way, there you go. There it is. And
Kalen, corner, Kalen, corner. Damn it!
I don't even know what's happening here.
Oh, I'm so thrown off right now. Oh my god.
The next episode that we will be doing on the Johnny Horror Podcast will be M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit. So please look forward to that. That will be dropping sometime in November, and Kalen and I will try it. For fuck's sake, I gave you a high five. Fuck off. But yeah, until then, everyone have the happiest Halloween, and we will be back to talk about horror movies, and we hope that you will be back to listen to us talk about them. Until then, kids, be good to each other, be half-decent human beings, and adios, muchachos.
Peace.
Bye, guys.